Hello, my cruciferous cousins, my strawberry sisters, and broccoli brothers, and welcome to PlantStock 2021. This is our 10th year anniversary of holding PlantStocks. I can't believe that 10 years has flown by, and I also can't believe how far the movement has come since 2011. We have so many exciting things that are happening in the plant-based space. So thank you for being here for the next 5 days for PlantStock 2021. Now, the first PlantStock in 2011 was thrown on the Esselstyn family farm. And this is really, it's a treasured place for the Esselstyns. It has been in the Esselstyn family since 1675, when Martin Cornelius van Esselstyn sailed over from Holland and set up roots in the Hudson Valley, specifically in the little town of Claverack. And it's actually one of two farms in the whole state of New York that has been owned and operated by the same family. Pretty remarkable. And it's now been with the Esselstyns for over 12 generations. So we loved hosting and sharing the property with people. We've actually had 6 PlantStocks at the Esselstyn farm. Just to give you a quick little tour, we've got our fields. The property is about 500 acres, and we have fields where we grow oats and rye and wheat, all organic. And this is the main compound where we have the barns. This is a great pond for swimming and kayaking and refreshing after a hot summer day. And then we have about 4 homes on the property, actually 5, and 4 of them we rent out to different people. But this is the homestead that we don't rent out. And my parents come here and live here in the summertime. And during the summer, they get descended on by all of their children and their grandchildren for several weeks at a time. And it's just a fantastic place to come and relax, as you can imagine. The back porch is where we have almost all of our meals. It's a great place to eat plant strong and also have great conversation. And it looks out over this really charming backyard that is, and I'm not exaggerating, bigger than a football field. And this is where we would host our PlantStock events. So we'd throw up the circus tent, the side tents, and then when it was dinner time, we would throw out the tables and we'd serve a 5-course meal under the evening canopy to all of our guests. And it was really a magical weekend. And after the dust settled, we decided, you know what? We got to name this event something really cool. And Jeff Novick, this brilliant nutritionist, said, PlantStock. You got all the rock stars, you got the music, the dancing, the food. It's PlantStock. And so it was perfect because a little ways down the road, there was this concert now 52 years ago, but this concert called Woodstock, 3 days of peace and music and Aquarian exposition in Bethel, New York. And it was held on Max Yasgur's dairy farm, and over 400,000 people descended to hear all these musicians, these influencers and disruptors and really rebels who were just speaking out against the status quo and things that they didn't believe in. And it had a lasting impact. And so in much the same way, that's what we want to do and are doing with PlantStock. And we threw a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and a 6th PlantStock at the Esselstyn farm. And then we outgrew the venue. We were busting at the seams. The circus tents were getting bigger and bigger. We were getting bigger and more Jumbotron TVs. And so we decided we got to move this thing. And so we found a great venue tucked in the Blue Ridge Mountains outside of Asheville, North Carolina. It's an old YMCA that was built in the 1920s called the Blue Ridge Assembly. And it felt like us. The nature, the rustic nature of the place, not too fancy. And the fact that people could stay on the premise. And so we called it Camp Plantstock. We welcomed people to be part of the tribe. And we had an absolute blast. And we did most of the lectures in this great old theater that was built in 1917. It seated 775 people. And you know that your event has kind of reached a pinnacle when you have Puddles the Clown as entertainment. And if you don't know Puddles, he is fantastic. He's hilarious. He was on America's Got Talent several seasons ago, and he is a very good plant strong friend of mine. Check him out. We all know what happened last year. We had COVID. We were supposed to have our 9th Plantstock, again at the Blue Ridge Assembly, but due to circumstances, we had to pivot on a dime, and that's when we decided that we would hold a virtual Plantstock. We held it live from the Esselstyn family farm. We returned, and it was very well received. We were able to reach thousands of people with the good news about plants, and it was a great success. This year, we were planning on going back again, but due to the Delta variant, that just didn't happen. And so we've decided again to have a virtual Plantstock. And we've pivoted from having it at the Esselstyn family farm due to Delta and some logistical challenges, and we're having it in Cleveland, Ohio. Now, having it virtual it's very bittersweet. It's bitter because there's nothing like a live event where you get to interact with people. There's a certain level of intimacy and a bond that occurs when you're live. No doubt about it. As many of you know, my father spent his career at the Cleveland Clinic, and that's where he did his groundbreaking research to show that you can prevent and reverse heart disease. In addition, and many of you may not know this, my great-grandfather, my mother's grandfather, a gentleman named George Washington Cryle, was one of the co-founders of the Cleveland Clinic in 1921. And he was this amazing man who had this insatiable thirst for knowledge. And in fact, in 1905, he performed the first successful blood transfusion from one human being to another. And in his autobiography, on the chapter on blood transfusions, he writes about how disappointed he was in the medical establishment for not embracing his technology much earlier because it could have saved literally thousands and thousands of lives. And then his last sentence, he wrote, "But such is the inertia of the human race." And I want to say it's much the same way with plant-based nutrition. You know, I look at what my father has done, and Colin Campbell and John McDougall and Michael Clapper, and they have been pushing this boulder uphill now for a good 30, 40 years. And I think finally that boulder is up at the top, and this movement is going to take off like nobody's business. And I want to thank these pioneers for all the work and the commitment and the dedication that they have made, and for not giving up, because they knew that this was the truth, because we are now standing on the shoulders of all these absolute giants. All right, so speaking of giants, this gentleman was an absolute giant as well. And in 1912, he purchased a little plot of land about 20 miles northeast of downtown Cleveland, and it's called the Knob. And it's this nice, excuse me, it's this beautiful wilderness area And it is the second highest point in northeast Ohio. And it looks out all the way 7 miles to Lake Erie. And on a clear day, you can see the freighters going across the lake. And as a child, I used to love coming out with my friends and sleeping in these screened-in cabins and playing through the woods and going to the pond and the caves. And there's this place called the Big Rocks that we would climb on and have capture the flag games. In the mid-1980s, there used to be a dilapidated old cabin here without any running water or electricity. And my parents basically raised that, and they put up this home here that we've been going out to for the weekends ever since. And it is really a fantastic spot. And this may look familiar to many of you because this is where the last scene in the movie documentary Forks Over Knives was filmed. And speaking of which, it's the 10th anniversary as well of Forks Over Knives. So here's that last scene, just to share it with you again.
The greatest gift that you could possibly give to yourself and your family, not only those in your generation, but your children and your grandchildren, if you can make them be aware of the incredible power that resides within each of them to avoid life's most poignantly tragic and painful events. You just don't have to have those kinds of events.
I believe it with all my heart. If anyone listens to this, and they really should look at their refrigerator and look at their diet and give it a try. You lose weight and you'll be healthier. Nothing could lose if you just take a few weeks and try. You could see how easy it is.
I'm not going to say it was difficult. Again, I made up my mind. This is what I'm going to do. I never felt like I wasn't getting what I wanted. So I didn't have ice cream. So I didn't have the donuts. So I ate something else.
I can thank them in every way I can think possible, and my doctor, especially Matt, when they just can't understand what it's done to change my life. And it really has, not just mine, my family's, everybody's. It gives me shivers talking about it because it's so serious. It's a life-changing experience.
You can be in control. And I stress this because there's so many things going on in my life that I'm not in control of. And that's my message. You can't control your outcome of your body. Eat to live and don't live to eat.
You better get that. You better get that recipe.
I just want to give a little tip of the hat to Brian Wendell, Lee Fulkerson, and John Corey for the spectacular job they did and the vision they had to bring Forks Over Knives to life. It has moved so many people to the plant-based lifestyle and has had so many people talking about this over the dinner table. And it really helped to move the needle in the plant-based space in a big, powerful way. So another reason why Cleveland, the Knob, is the perfect place to have our 10th anniversary plant stock is because Cleveland is the home of rock and roll. This is where the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is located in downtown Cleveland on the shores of Lake Erie. And it is also where Alan Freed, the DJ for WJW radio station in the mid-1950s, coined the term rock and roll, which he borrowed from some old blues tunes, which actually means to fornicate. And it resonated with teenagers because it evoked this spirit of rebellion. And it gradually revolutionized the music industry. And in much the same way that rock and roll revolutionized the music industry, I am convinced, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that plant-based living is going to revolutionize all kinds of industries. It's going to revolutionize the food industry. My bet is that within 10 to 15 years, animal products and animal byproducts will be eradicated from food stores. It's just not going to be efficient, and it's just not going to make any kind of sense. Secondly, it's going to revolutionize the medical industry. Right now, we have an industry that is inefficient and doesn't get to the root causation of disease. We now know that lifestyle medicine, prevention, is the true hero when it comes to eradicating chronic Western disease. It's not about pills and procedures. It's about health care, and it starts with self-care and what's on your plate. In 2021, climate change is beyond real. Mother Earth is behaving in a way that makes absolutely no sense, and it's because of the way that we've been abusing her. And so if you're a true environmentalist, you can't have animal products or animal byproducts in your life, okay? There's a new study that came out that we're going to talk about this weekend, Celeste Rao, about how 87% of global greenhouse gas emissions are now caused by animal agriculture between the supply chain and the life cycle. 87%. It's mind-blowing. So collectively, we've got to rapidly embrace the plants and ditch the animal products. I believe that we are on the precipice of re-examining our core values as humans and becoming more in tune with one of the qualities that makes us more human than anything, and that is empathy, being empathetic. And I think that this is going to force us to become better guardians to the animals that we share this planet with. And then lastly, everybody knows what's going on right now with COVID-19 and Delta, and that the root causation of this is it's a zoonotic disease. It's basically because of our exploitation of animals for decades and decades. And now that we are breeding and slaughtering and eating close to 80 billion animals annually, we're having to face the music. And so my hope is that collectively we also understand what we can do to prevent any further pandemics. We got to move away from eating animals. But with all that, I truly believe that the Plant Strong era is here. The Plant Strong era is now. The next decade is going to be absolutely spectacular. And let me just say, long live rock and roll, and long live plant-based living. Okay, that leads me to our 2021 speaker lineup of Brock stars in the plant-based movement. We have a combination of the old guard and the new guard. And it's so exciting. And these speakers are going to be delivering to you TED-style talks that are kind of short and super informative. I've asked them to keep them to 20 to 30 minutes. There's a handful that might go over. And let me introduce them to you right now. So first we have, of course, my father, Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr., delivering his tried and true talk on preventing and reversing heart disease. He is always adding seminal research and information to his talk, so you'll definitely want to listen to this one. We have one of the heroes of the movement, one of the grandfathers, T. Colin Campbell. He's one of the foremost biochemists on the planet. He'll be talking to us about his new book, The Future of Nutrition. Colin, this will be his fourth or fifth time joining us at Plant Stock. We have an amazing doctor, an amazing humanitarian, Dr. Michael Clapper, just a gem of a human being. And he'll be giving a new talk called A Global Perspective. We have my mother, Ann Kryl Esselstyn, who I absolutely love and adore. She's the Energizer Bunny, and she will be giving her suitcase talk called Plant-Based Basics from A to Z. We have Mr. NutritionFacts.org, Dr. Michael Greger. He'll be joining us for his fourth Plant Stock event. Let's put him to the test with a live Q&A. Start thinking of your questions for Michael. From across the pond, we have Dr. Gemma Newman. She is one of the new guards. She is spectacular, and she's going to be giving us a talk called Haywire Hormones, and she lights it up. We have Doug Evans. He's written a book all about sprouting. He is like Mr. Sprouts. He's got more energy, more enthusiasm for sprouting than any human being I've ever encountered. You're going to love it. Let's Sprout with Doug Evans. We've got the dynamic duo of Dean and Aisha Shirzai. They are the co-founders of the Brain Health and Alzheimer's Prevention Program from Loma Linda Medical Center. These guys are true rock stars when it comes to preventing Alzheimer's. And they're going to be giving a new talk called A Broken System, an Alternative Path. And this is their fourth visit to Plantstock. Making his second visit to Plantstock, we have Dr. Sailesh Rao. He is the executive director for Climate Healers, and his talk is called Transform Yourself and Transform Our World. I love it. This is a woman that was just on the Plant Strong podcast. Her name is Leilani Munter. She is an eco warrior. I absolutely dig this woman. Her title is called The Human Impact. We got JD and Chrissy Roth. If you don't know these two, JD is the creator and founder of The Biggest Loser, one of the most popular television shows ever. Chrissy is his wonderful, amazing wife. They were on the Plant Strong podcast in season 1, and they're going to be giving their lecture on plant-based realities. Making her third appearance at Plantstock, we have Dr. Sarai Stanzik. Her lecture is MS to Marathons, This Doctor's Story. She is a jewel of a woman and physician. We have Kevin Duffy. Kevin is he is a firefighter from Yonkers, New York. He had something very tragic happen to him during 9/11 that really informed his career path. You're going to hear all about it on his talk called A Plant-Based 9/11 Tribute. Love this Plant Strong firefighting brother of mine. We have the cardiologist, Dr. Monica Agrawal. She embraced the truth about plants and had to pivot her practice. And this talk is called Inflammation's Impact on Heart Disease. She's fabulous. This is our medical director for our medical immersion programs. He's a cardiologist that hails from Asheville, North Carolina, Dr. Brian Aspel. He is a gentleman through and through, has so much passion for all things plants and cardiology. His talk is From Stents to Sweet Potatoes. Yeah. Had this duo, the Plant-Based Juniors, on the podcast this year. Whitney English and Alexandra Caspero. They are wonderful dietitians, and they know everything about what our children need when it comes to nutrition. And they're going to be busting up the big 5 myths about plant-based nutrition and kids. Another speaker from across the pond, we have Dr. Alan Desmond, a gastroenterologist. He is just oozing with all kinds of passion, and he's going to be telling us about why all health begins in the gut. We have my razzle-dazzle sister, Jane Esselstyn. Jane will be cooking up a storm throughout the 5 days, and so just get ready for Jane. She's magnificent. We have Jane's husband, my brother-in-law, Brian Hart, and he'll be joining us periodically throughout the weekend. He is the executive director for the Esselstyn Foundation that is 3 years old, and is spreading the news for free about plant-based nutrition to as many people as possible. And Brian is doing such a phenomenal job leading the charge. Boy, we have Dr. Will Bolshewitz. You can call him Dr. B, another gastroenterologist. He wrote Fiber Fueled over a year ago. It was a New York Times bestseller, and he is so convinced that the key to a healthy microbiome is a diversity of fiber that he just shouts it from every rooftop that he can. And he's so excited about this year's plant stock that he said, Rip, I'm going to come up with a brand new talk that I've never done before. And it's called Fiber Fueled for Weight Loss. It's going to be fabulous. We have from LA, Dr. Christy Funk. She's a breast surgeon, and she was on the Plant Strong podcast this season. She is absolutely remarkable in a number of ways. She wrote the book called Breasts, an Owner's Manual, and her talk is called Breasts and Plants. We have my buddy going back 10 years, Robert Cheek. He is like Mr. Vegan Bodybuilder. He recently wrote this book with his buddy Matt Frazier called The Plant-Based Athlete. It's a New York Times bestseller, and he'll be talking to everybody that's out there because everybody has an athlete hiding within them. We've got the dynamic duo of Cyrus Kambata and Robbie Barbero. They run the Mastering Diabetes program. They've written the Mastering Diabetes books. These guys know more about type 1, type 1.5, gestational, type 2 diabetes than any people on the planet. And they're going to let you know exactly what's going on with insulin resistance and diabetes, and it will change the way you look at this disease. We have the foremost authority on nitric oxide on the planet, Dr. Nathan Bryant. He will be giving his lecture on functional nitric oxide nutrition. My father, as you guys know, talks all about the endothelial cells, and the key is we got to make these endothelial cells sing and wring out nitric oxide. You're going to learn how. We have one of the best plant-based chefs ever, Ken Rubin. He runs the Ruby Cooking School. I've been working with Ken over the last year, developing some of our new plant-strong, delicious, healthy products. He is a rock star. His lecture is A Case for Cooking. We have Adam Sudd. This is his 5th appearance at Plant Stock. His story is so transformational. It's so amazing that I needed to have Adam speak at the 10th anniversary Plant Stock. His talk is From Pills to Plants. Hang on to your seats. And then we also have the brilliant, the uncomparable Dr. Doug Lisle, evolutionary psychologist, who will be giving a new talk as well called Cheat Days Are Cheating You. All right, that's our lineup of Brock Stars for 2021. Again, we're going to drip them out to you over the next 5 days, and it's going to be make that plant-tastic. Okay, I'm going to pivot right now, and I'm going to give you, this is a lecture that I've given at every Plant Stock since 2017 when the Engine 2 7-Day Rescue Diet book came out. But before this book came out, I had 2 other books that came out. And so I just want to give you a brief history to kind of get you up to speed. So as many of you probably know, I went to the University of Texas at Austin, graduated in 1987, then started a 10-year career as a professional triathlete, fueling myself with plants to become a world-class triathlete. Then I became a firefighter for the city of Austin, Texas, and that's where I introduced my passion and love for plants to the guys at Fire Station 2 on the C shift. And we actually had one guy in particular that was really a dead man walking. And so we were able to basically turn his health around, bring down his cholesterol over 147 points in 28 days, and was able to morph these Texas firefighters from medical time bombs to healthy superheroes. This book came out in 2009. I've been a firefighter for 12 years, and after it came out, I got an offer from John Mackey, the CEO of Whole Food Market Stores, to basically retire from firefighting and become a healthy eating partner for Whole Food Market Stores. And I saw this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to take helping people and saving lives to a whole new level. And so I jumped at the opportunity. And so for 10 years, 2010 to 2020, I went around to Whole Food Market Stores, 100 to 120 a year. And I spread this message of health and happiness. And we also did a food line that embraced all of the Engine 2 criteria. And in 2013, I ended up writing my second book called Plant Strong. Because as I went around and was giving all these talks and lectures, I realized that the same questions kept coming up and coming up and coming up. And so I've got to obliterate all these objections and questions that people have when it comes to eating plant-based, because it's just so misguided and the science doesn't back it up. And so I have 36 chapters in the first half of the book. And again, each one obliterates any objection that somebody can throw at you, like where to get your protein, and what about calcium, and what about iron, and oh, what about children, and what about the elderly, and what about athletes, and oh, it's too expensive, and oh, there's no variety. Every one of these in some very short, informative, pithy chapters. And then the second half is another 130 recipes that are absolutely delicious. The third book that came out in 2017 is the Engine 2 7-Day Rescue Diet. And this came to being because starting in 2010, I started throwing these medical immersion, 7-day medical immersion programs for Whole Food Market's sickest team members. And over the course of 5 years, I had over 1,500 data points, 1,500 team members that had gone through. And we did before and after biometrics. So we did before and after cholesterol levels, lethal cholesterol, the LDL, the HDL, the triglycerides, blood pressure, weight, fasting glucose, all these things. And we discovered that in just 7 days, people were having jaw-dropping results as far as lowering all these things, losing weight, getting off or greatly reducing their medications. You've never seen anything like it. And so that's why in 2015, I'm like, this has to be my next book, because I want people to understand that you can do things that you formerly thought were impossible in just 7 days. And then after 7 days, you decide what you want to take with you going forward. And my bet is you're going to take all of it or you're going to take a lot of it. And it's amazing how something so simple as what you're putting into your mouth can transform your life. And then the fourth book that I have is the Engine 2 Cookbook that I did with my sister Jane. It came out in 2018, and it is 130 lip-smacking, rib-sticking, body-slimming recipes to live plant strong. So I want to share with you now the 7 pillars of the 7-day rescue diet that I am so enthusiastic about, and I want you to hear, and then you decide which ones make sense and resonate with you that you want to take forward into your lives. So, 7 pillars, and let me just give you a quick overview. Pillar number 1 is why we love plants. Pillar number 2 is why we love whole plants. There's a big difference between plants, and whole plants. Number 3 is why we want to make sure we're chewing our food and not drinking it. Number 4 is why we want to be mindful of calorie density. And I'll explain that to you. It's very simple. Number 5 is why we want to, if anything, limit our protein consumption and why we don't care about protein. Number 6 is why we got to be very judicious when it comes to the amount of salt, sugar, and fat we're taking into our bodies. And number 7 is why we want to move. All right, so let's jump in. This will be about 45 minutes, and I think you're really going to love this. Okay, pillar number 1, why we love plants. We love plants because this is where everything starts. So know that if an animal product or animal byproduct has anything of benefit or nutritional integrity in it, it either directly or indirectly came from plants. So plants are absolutely the bomb diggity when it comes to nutrition. Now, I want you to look at the way we look at strong food versus weak food, because I grew up thinking that the true superheroes, the true strong food was the meat and the bacon and the steaks and the burgers and the cheese and the eggs and the oils. And I couldn't have been more wrong. And we now know, right, the science is very clear that the true superheroes, the true strong food is actually the whole plant-based food, the fruits, the vegetables, the whole grains, the beans. And that the weak food that is insidiously destructive and problematic are the animal-based foods and the animal-based byproducts. So let me jump in and just share with you what's wrong with meat and what's wrong with dairy. So the problem with muscle is anything that has muscle inherently in it has cholesterol, saturated fat, and problematic animal protein. So anything that flaps a wing, wiggles a fin, paws a hoof, closes a clam is a problem. We'll start at the top here with red meat. With cholesterol. There's 70 milligrams of cholesterol per 3 ounces of your leanest red meat. 70. There's absolutely no requirement for us as human beings to consume cholesterol. Our liver produces all we need naturally. We don't need it in an extemporaneous food source. Most people think that chicken is healthier than red meat. The reality is it isn't. And in fact, it has the exact same amount of cholesterol per 3 ounces as red meat, 70 milligrams. Most fish has more cholesterol than red meat or chicken. Salmon has a little bit less. It's 60 milligrams per 3 ounces, which really isn't going to help you get heart healthy or bring down your cholesterol. So no big deal there. And then lastly, we have eggs. That egg yolk has 212 milligrams of dietary cholesterol in it. That's the equivalent of 2 Burger King Whoppers with cheese. Wow. Now, next, let's talk about saturated fat. The preponderance of the scientific literature shows us undeniably that we do not, as human beings, need saturated fat. It just promotes heart disease, it promotes insulin resistance that leads to type 2 diabetes, and it also promotes tumors and cancers. So we don't need it in our food in any way, shape, or form. And it, for the most part, only exists in animal products. Same thing with cholesterol. So your leanest piece of red meat is 40% saturated fat. 40%. Chicken, 30% saturated fat. Fish, salmon, 20% saturated fat. And that incredible egg, 20% saturated fat. I like to say there's only 2 things wrong with the egg, the yolk and the white. All right, let's move on to dairy products, because dairy products are just different forms of meat. So we'll start with milk. Milk is liquid meat. You've got all kinds of saturated fat You've got all kinds of dietary cholesterol, and you've got a weak, insidiously destructive form of protein called casein, Casein, that Colin Campbell in the China study has referred to as the number one carcinogen in the American diet. And just to kind of put this into perspective, 1 8-ounce glass of whole milk has the same amount of saturated fat as 4.5 strips of bacon. And that glass of whole milk that's 150 calories is 51% fat. Okay? Now, 2% milk, they actually do that by weight as opposed to the number of calories coming from fat. 2% milk is actually 35% fat, and 1% milk is actually 25% fat. And the reality is, whether it's whole milk, 2%, 1%, or skim milk or non-fat milk, you've still got all that casein, that animal protein that's in that milk, that again is a tumor and cancer promoter that we don't want in our bodies. That casein, it's a growth accelerator that was put there by the mother cow to grow that baby cow as fast as possible. And it was never meant for us as human beings. It wasn't meant for us as adult human beings, as teenagers, or even as babies, because the composition of protein, carbohydrates, and fat is perfect for a baby cow, not for human beings. Okay? Next, we have yogurt. We're going to call yogurt runny meat. And what is the yogurt that is flying off the shelves right now? Maybe as much as our plant-based almond milks and oat milk yogurts. It is this. It's the Greek yogurt. And why? Because we're all falling for the baloney. We see twice the amount of protein, and we get giddy, and we think we need that for optimal health. And it's a charade, absolute charade. You've got twice the amount of casein that is going to fertilize any dormant tumor and cancer cells you have in your body. Okay? Not a smart move. Don't fall for all the marketing hype. You do not need any more protein than you are getting that's in your whole plant-based foods. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Ice cream is just frozen meat. It is a big gob of fat and sugar, and of course we love it. All the receptors in our brain go off like pinball machines, but it does not love you back. And lastly, we have cheese. It's hardened meat. Everybody loves cheese. It is like dairy crack. It is loaded with fat, salt, casomorphines that are low levels of opiates that are put there by the mother cow, and we have no business eating it. To put this into perspective, 1 8-ounce glass of whole milk is 150 calories. 1 8-ounce glass of melted cheese, 960 calories. So it's this concentrated source of calories, of sodium, of casomorphines. People, we got to stop worshiping at the church of cheeses 7 days a week. We got to kick that guy and that gal out of our lives. And you may think that this is a best friend, but I'm telling you right now, it is a foe to your health. All right? Sayonara, cheese. Don't need you. Again, cow's milk is for a baby cow, not for humans. We're the only mammals on the planet that drink another mammal's secretion. It makes no sense. We become so habituated that we just can't see how ridiculous this really is. Pillar number 2, why we really love whole plants. So this is truly where all the guts and all the glory are found in nutrition. Again, this is the genesis of everything that is fantastic when it comes to nutrition. We want to eat foods that are as close to grown as possible, that are minimally processed, and now we're going to guarantee we're getting everything we need. All the macronutrients, all the micronutrients in abundance. We got to stay away from all the plant-based pseudo foods that are out there. All right? This is just loaded, teeming with sodium, with salt, with sugar, whether it's French fries, diet cheese, vegan marshmallows, Pop-Tarts, cupcakes, ice cream, the burgers, the dogs, the nuggets, the cereals, the earth balance spreads, the fake butters, the fried chips. Don't believe the fact that red wine is plant-based and it's healthy. It's the French thing. It's not, okay? Wine, booze, it's empty calories. It's a known toxin to every organ in the body. And there's a great study that came out in The Lancet not too long ago that actually shows definitively that the safest amount of alcohol for men and women is the least amount. Now, oil. We're going to talk for a second about oil because this is the most processed and refined food on the planet. It's also the most calorie dense, meaning it's got more calories per ounce than any other food. Let me show you 1 tablespoon. And this is olive oil, but all oils, whether it's canola, safflower, sunflower, corn, walnut, flaxseed, coconut, they're all 120 calories per tablespoon. So 1 tablespoon, 120 calories. Calories from fat are 120, so it's 100% fat. 15% are coming from saturated fat. And you can see here, we have a big goose egg next to every vitamin and mineral. This is the definition of an empty calorie, right here. And to me, olive oil and some of these other oils, they truly epitomize the triumph of marketing over science. Because the science and the facts truly show here that this is a big black hole of nutritional nothingness. Don't fall for the hype. Let me put this into perspective for you. Everybody out there, everybody listening, you know that white sugar, table sugar are empty calories. Guess how many calories are in a tablespoon of sugar? 50. 50 calories in a tablespoon of sugar. 1 tablespoon of any oil, 120. 2.5 times the amount of calories that are in a tablespoon of sugar. So 2.5 times the amount of empty calories in sugar. And it takes roughly 32 olives that you have to squeeze the dickens out of to get 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And in that process, you discard anything that was beneficial in those olives. You get rid of the fiber. You get rid of the water. You get rid of the vitamins, the minerals, the phytonutrients, the antioxidants, and you also get rid of the protein and the carbohydrates. And all you're left with is 100% fat. We live in a country that is 75% overweight and obese. We don't need a concentrated source of fat calories. I want you to start thinking of oils as being the equivalent in the fat world to what sugar is in the carbohydrate world. Okay? So, I want to quickly go through macro and micronutrients and why we love whole plant-based foods so much. So there's 3 different macronutrients that are in food: protein, carbohydrates, and fats. And each and every one of these has calories. Your protein is 4 calories per gram, carbohydrates are 4 calories per gram, and fat is a little over 9 calories per gram. Now, when it comes to plant-based protein, you're getting the Goldilocks of protein that has the perfect amount of all the essential amino acids, and you're getting an absolutely complete and very prolific source of protein. Again, the Goldilocks. When it comes to carbohydrates, we have 36 trillion cells Excuse me for just a second. I've been talking a lot. 36 trillion cells that make up our body. And each and every one of those cells runs on glucose. It runs on sugar. And the problem is that most Americans are consuming junky, 95% of Americans are consuming junky carbohydrates, like white sugar, white rice, white pasta, white bread, donuts, ding-dongs, all these things, okay? And it just isn't working. We want to be consuming unprocessed carbohydrates like fruits and vegetables and whole grains and beans. These are the absolute winners when it comes to carbohydrates. And unfortunately, 95% of Americans are not consuming enough whole plant-based foods. And then when it comes to fats, you're going to be hitting a home run when you're eating plants when it comes to the polyunsaturated essential fatty acids, the omega-3s and the omega-6s. You're going to be steering clear of the trans fats, an abundance of saturated fat, and limited amounts of monounsaturated fats. All right? Absolutely fantastic. So when it comes to protein, carbohydrates, and fats, you are like crushing it. Now, when it comes to micronutrients, these are vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytonutrients, and fiber. These have no calories, but they're absolutely essential for us to take our health to the next level. When it comes to vitamins, there's only 13 vitamins that we need as human beings. 11 of those originate in plants. It's the mother source for vitamins. The two exceptions are vitamin D, that's the sunshine vitamin, and vitamin B12 that comes from microorganisms in the soil. So we recommend that you do supplement with B12. It'll cost $12 to $15 a year, and you're absolutely set. When it comes to minerals, there's 17 major and minor minerals. These grow in the soil. Guess what else grows in the soil? Plants. Your green leafies, your beans, all these things grow in the soil. And so they are the best source of absorbable and retainable calcium, iron, magnesium, you name it, right? Every one of them, you're going to get all you need. Folate, rocking it. When it comes to antioxidants, plants on average have 65 times more antioxidants than animal products. And again, it's because everything originates in plants. Phytonutrients, there's over 20,000 known phytonutrients. It's a big fancy word for plant nutrients. And these are essential for basically mitigating oxidative stress, basically preventing us from rusting out, preventing DNA damage, and taking our health to the next level. And phytonutrients are just bountiful in plants, and it's what all that color is in blueberries, in watermelons, in sweet potatoes. That is phytonutrients staring you in the face. And then, of course, we have fiber. Fiber only exists in plants. Only exists in plants. And it is absolutely essential for our health. Whether it's drawing out toxins, whether it's keeping us as regular as a Swiss commuter train. If you are constipated, this will rectify that in a hurry. It is absolutely essential in helping satiate us. And as you're going to hear from Dr. Alan Desmond and from Dr. Will Bolshewitz, it's essential for the health of our microbiome. Fiber makes the world go round. And you can see here, this is a standard American diet. This is some data taken from the USDA Economic Council. Over 60% of America's calories are coming from refined and processed foods that have how much fiber? 0. Another 35% is coming from animal products and animal byproducts that have how much fiber? 0. And the remaining 5-6% are coming from whole plant-based foods. And most Americans aren't doing it. And that's why 97% of Americans are deficient in fiber. And you're going to hear all about it this weekend. Okay, pillar number 3 is why we want to make sure we're chewing our food and why we don't want to drink our calories. So this is a glass of orange juice. And you can see here, if you were to eat the orange, you get 45 calories, you get 2.5 grams of fiber, and 9 grams of sugar. However, if you drink those 8 ounces of orange juice, you get almost 3 times the calories at 134 calories. You get 1/4 the amount of fiber, and you get 2.5 times the amount of sugar. And that fiber is there naturally to help slow down the release of that sugar into our systems. And so when you're drinking your calories, not only is it emptied from your stomach rapidly, but you're also getting some sugar highs and some pretty amazing sugar lows as well. So we don't want to drink our calories because our brains and our stomach don't register those calories as calories, and you will invariably consume the same amount of solid food on top of any liquid calories that you consume. So if you look from sunup to sundown at a day of beverages, you'll see a lot of people start their days with coffee with sugar and creamer that adds all kinds of calories. You have a glass of juice, orange juice, apple juice, V8, tomato juice, right? There's another 130 calories. You've got a soy mocha frappuccino, a couple hundred calories. You have some sort of a Coke or a Dr. Pepper or Mountain Dew, 120 calories. You have a green juice that's a couple hundred calories. You decide after the gym that you need to replace your protein stores, which you don't need to, with a muscle replacement drink of a couple hundred calories. And you decide you want to also drink some coconut water that is really just sugar water, 50 calories per serving. And then you decide to wind up the day with a glass of red wine, that's 120 calories. Or you have 2 glasses, that's 240 calories. And you can see in a hurry why most Americans are unwittingly consuming between 500 to 1,500 liquid calories a day. And, the recommended daily amount of calories per day for us is between 2,000 and 2,500. Wow. I mean, we're going to be overshooting it like nobody's business when we're drinking these kind of calories. So my advice for you is to drink water, right? Drink water. Like the other 20,000 mammals on the planet. Just drink water. Don't drink your calories, okay? Pillar number 4, why we care about calorie density. I'm going to explain this to you, but the number one New Year's resolution for people is they want to lose weight. The CDC has recently said there's about 75% of this country that's now either overweight or obese. This is a riddle that most people can't seem to solve, and it's because we're barking up the wrong tree. It's like a dog chasing its tail. Most of us think that the only way to lose weight is to eat less before you've had time to take in too many calories, and that's the winning combination. So what does that look like? So you can see here, this is the calorie density of foods we eat. Calorie density is really the number of calories in a pound of food. Now, let me just backtrack for a sec. There's been extensive studies that show that as human beings, we're hardwired to consume somewhere between 3 to 5 pounds of food a day. 3 to 5 pounds of food a day. And so if you're eating, on average, vegetables are 100 calories per pound, fruit is 250, potatoes are 350, whole intact grains like rice, barley, farro, 500, and legumes that are bean, peas, and lentils are 600. So if you're eating all those foods above the red line, 600 calories per pound or less, you can almost literally eat ad libitum, meaning unlimited amounts, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner until you're comfortably full and still lose weight because the calorie density is so low. Now, remember that chart I showed you, how America eats? 60% is processed and refined foods that fall well below the red line, between 1,500 to 2,300 calories per pound. If you're eating animal products and animal byproducts, like beef, chicken, fish, that are 1,200, ice cream and cheese that are right around 1,800 to 2,000. If you're doing oils, if you're doing lots of nuts and butters, forget about it, right? 3 to 4 to 5 pounds a day below the red line. No wonder 75% of us are overweight or obese. So again, the key to unlocking this riddle is if you focus almost entirely on eating foods that are above the red line, you're not going to believe where you are in a matter of 7 days, 2 months, 6 months, 1 year, depending upon how much weight you have to lose. It is fantastic. You're eating copious amounts of the most glorious, wonderful, colorful, tasty food on the planet. Get your head around it, and the magic will happen. Just to give you an example here, this is how many pounds of a certain food you would have to eat to get to 2,500 calories. And this is just to help illustrate what calorie density is all about. So cauliflower, you have to eat 20 pounds to get 2,500 calories. Good luck with that. Cheddar cheese, 1.5 pounds, and you're at 2,500 calories, right? That's not going to make a dent. Potatoes, 10.5 pounds of potatoes, and you're at 2,500 calories. That's a lot of potatoes. And we adore potatoes at Plant Strong. Absolutely adore them. Now, butter, 3,000 calories a pound, 0.8 of a pound gets you to 2,500 calories. That is a problem. And if you're putting half a stick of butter on your baked potatoes, like a lot of firefighters do, that's an additional probably 750 to 800 calories. You're not going to lose weight doing that. And then on top of that, you're putting 2 big dollops of sour cream, you're putting the bacon bits. Ain't going to happen. Watermelons, 21 pounds equals 2,500 calories. Go ahead, have a whole watermelon for dessert. When it comes to nuts, they're about 2,800 calories per pound. Almost 1 pound is equivalent to 2,500 calories. This is why we can absolutely, with the best of intentions, sabotage our weight loss goals and our health goals with too many nuts. They're 80% fat. Most nuts are 15% saturated fat, which is one of the reasons why my father basically bans nuts in his program. And if you have almonds, pistachios, cashews, walnuts lying around the house, at the office, it's going to be a problem. Now, the only nut that we do allow on the 7-day rescue are walnuts, and we want you to keep it to a small handful a day. And the reason why we allow walnuts is because they have such a friendly omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, which makes them the most anti-inflammatory nut out there. And remember, the reason why so many of us are where we are today is because we've been eating this standard American diet that's so inflammatory, and we got to bring down the inflammation. We got to put out the fires that are burning within us right now so we can start to heal. And walnuts are the only nut that meet that criteria. Okay? And we limit it, again, to a small handful, and that small handful is 180 calories. So there you have it. Strawberries, 15 pounds will get you to 2,500 calories. Go ahead, have a pound of strawberries for dessert or during the course of the day. All oil, you guys have heard me rage on about this. 4,000 calories a pound, 0.6 of a pound will get you to 2,500 calories. I don't care if it's coconut, safflower, sunflower, or our beloved Mediterranean wonder food, olive oil. All right? 2 calorie dense, empty calories, don't fall for it. And then lastly, broccoli, right? 17 pounds will get you 2,500 calories. Love the broccoli. Okay. I'm going to drive this message home one more time so you definitely get it. So oatmeal with fruit on it is about 350 calories a pound. And that oatmeal, because it's made with what? Water, which brings down the calorie density tremendously. We adore it. We love it. Whereas dry cereals are more like 1,500 calories a pound. So depending upon how much weight we need to lose, we want to be mindful that we're actually doing more of the steel cut oats, the oatmeal, than the dried cereals. Rice. We love whole, intact grains, brown rice, barley, millet, amaranth, farro. These are rock stars. However, you take these and you turn them into crackers, you turn them into chips, and you add oil and sugar and salt, and all of a sudden the calorie density goes from 600 up to about 2,300. Okay? On the 7-day rescue, we're not doing chips and crackers. Kale, green leafies. We want you doing 5 to 6 servings of fist-sized green leafies every single day. Green leafies are going to bring back your nitric oxide levels, make your endothelial cells sing. You're going to hear about that this weekend. So we love green leafies. They're 60 calories a pound. Whereas you turn those into chips, like kale chips, and you add in the oil instead of the water, and all of a sudden the calorie density goes up to about 2,000 calories a pound. Grapes, we love grapes. 250 calories a pound, right? Snack on them, throw them in the freezer, have them as little popsicles, but you turn those grapes into raisins, you take out the water, and now you've got a calorie density that's closer to 1,500. So the calorie density goes up almost 5-fold by removing the water. So we got to be really judicious. We're not doing dried fruits, okay? We do allow some raisins in your cereal, but we're not snacking on dried fruits. And then when it comes to sweet potatoes, we love sweet potatoes and potatoes. 350 calories a pound, but French fries are over 2,000 calories a pound. Huge difference when you replace oil with the water. Calorie density goes right up. Spaghetti, because we take the noodles, we cook them in the water, brings down the calorie density. These are 550 calories a pound, okay? We don't mind pasta as long as it's 100% whole grain, or if it's made out of beans, garbanzo beans, black beans, lentils. These are all healthy. However, we got to be careful with bread because bread doesn't have the water and it's much more calorie dense. Bread is 1,500 calories a pound. So we don't mind open-faced sandwiches depending upon what your goals are, but we're not putting the lid on our sandwiches. And if you have to lose over 50 pounds, substitute a collard wrap or some sort of romaine lettuce or a green wrap instead of doing the bread. All right? Now, column 1 and column 3, you'll see every one of them, the water is there. It's there in the oatmeal, it's there in the kale, it's there in the sweet potatoes. It's not there in the cereal, the chips, or the fries. It's there in the rice, the grapes, and the spaghetti. It's not there in the chips, the raisins, and the bread. All right? Whole plant-based foods that are low in calories, high in nutrients, high in water, and high in fiber. That's the winning ticket. You guys got it. I know you do. Pillar number 5, why we don't care about protein, because protein is in every whole plant-based food in the perfect combination, in the perfect proportion. We don't have to sweat it, not for 1 second. Again, just like with the oils, do not fall for all the marketing hype. And in fact, I will tell you that most Americans are protein toxic. They're getting well over 20% of their daily calories from protein, and it's the wrong kind of protein. It's coming from animal protein that, and I'm going to repeat all the things that it does. Animal protein, it leaches calcium from your bones because it's so high in the sulfuric containing amino acids. It actually is high in IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor number 1, that's going to incite tumors and cancers. It will raise cholesterol levels. It will promote inflammation in your arteries. And lastly, it's really harsh on your kidneys and your liver. Unlike plant-based proteins that are not harsh. They don't promote inflammation. They don't leach calcium from your bones, right? They're not going to incite IGF-1. They rock. So what are proteins? They're just chains, right, that are hooked together of amino acids. There's 20 recognized amino acids. 9 essential amino acids are considered essential because they can't be manufactured by our body. So we have to get these from our food. The 9 are histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, tryptophan, and valine. Those are the 9. And I want you to know that all 9 exist in all whole plant-based foods. Don't let anybody tell you that plant-based proteins aren't complete. They are completely complete. By eating throughout the day, you're going to get all the protein that you need, and you're going to get all 9 of the essential amino acids. Okay. Now, I just need to drive this home because, it's the first question that somebody's going to ask you when they find out that you're eating plant-based is, well, where in the world do you get your protein? And so you need to know that, again, you are getting your protein from the original source. You're getting it from the plants. Where all animals get their protein from. You're just skipping like the middle cow, the middle pig, the middle chicken. You're skipping the middle man and going right to the source, and now you're not getting any of the riffraff that comes with that animal protein, the cholesterol, the saturated fat, and all the other stuff. So the Institute of Medicine and the World Health Organization have basically said we need roughly 10% of our calories coming from protein. And that's with a built-in safety margin of 30% for women that are pregnant and athletes. So check this out. White mushrooms, 57% protein. Spinach, 50% protein. Firm tofu, 47. Kidney beans, 28. Pinto beans, 26. Tomatoes, 20%. Quinoa, 18%. Oats, 16%. Red bell peppers, 12%. The point here is you can't blow it. You're going to get actually more protein than you need eating a whole food plant-based diet. And here's a really interesting fact that most people don't know. And that is you can't store excessive amounts of protein. It's the one macronutrient. Remember the 3 macronutrients, protein, carbohydrates, and fat. It's the one macronutrient we can't store. And so what do we do with excessive amounts of protein? It either turns into fat or we pee it away. So it really does us no benefit to overdose on protein, animal protein or even plant protein. If you haven't seen The Game Changers, I highly recommend you see it. It came out in October of 2019. It's still on Netflix. And my friend James Wilkes does a remarkable job basically busting out all these myths. And if you don't know Nehemiah Delgado, he was one of the stars of the movie. He is a plant-strong bodybuilder. He was on the cover of Muscle and Fitness magazine in, I believe it was, May of 2018. He never has had in his whole life any kind of meat or muscle. And going on now a little over a decade, he's been 100% plant-based. He did have some dairy products back in the day. But look at the body that he has built just on plants, right? Look at the body that the elephant has built, the rhinoceros, the giraffe. Do not fall for it. You guys can have everything you need when it comes to looking gorgeous and also looking gorgeous on the inside with the power of plants. And you're getting all the protein you need. Pillar number 6 is why we want to go easy on salt, sugar, and fat. We are, as Americans, consuming copious amounts of salt, sugar, and fat like our lives depended on it. And our lives depend on us not eating so much of these things. Let's start off with salt. So salt. Most Americans are getting between 3,000 to 5,000 milligrams of sodium a day. It is absolutely ludicrous, and that's why almost 1/3 of American adults are on some sort of a hypertensive medication. According to the Institute of Medicine, we want to be, our upper limit for sodium should be right around 1,500 milligrams over the course of a day. So that's where the sweet spot that we're trying to hit during the 7-day rescue challenge. And it's easy to get there as long as you're minimizing the amount of packaged, boxed, and canned foods that you're eating. If you were to look at where Americans get their sodium, if there was a pie chart, you'd see that 80% of America's sodium comes from packaged foods and restaurant foods. About 10% it comes from when we use the salt shaker on our food. Another 10% comes from when we salt our food when we're cooking it. So the preponderance of it comes from packaged and restaurant foods. So let's dive in so you can just see how ridiculous this is. Red Lobster Admiral Feast meal, 5,000 milligrams just in that one meal. Cheesecake Factory's breakfast burrito, 3,640 milligrams. AMC's Bavarian Legend Soft Pretzel, 7,600 milligrams. Like, whoa, that is mind-numbing. I don't think I've ever had one, or maybe I've seen one at the movie theaters. Now, below the red line, we're looking at packaged foods. Amy's low-fat chunky vegetable soup, 1,440 milligrams in a 2-serving can. 365 organic vegetable broth, 500 milligrams per cup. Broths and soups are notorious for being ridiculously high in sodium. And Pepperidge Farm hearty white bread, 460 milligrams per slice. The number one source of sodium in the American diet comes from bread. Now, we got to learn to become label reading ninja warriors. Never believe anything on the front of any package, box, or can. I learned this from Jeff Novick. And as you can see here, it says organic. Great, but it doesn't mean it's healthy. Amy's doesn't mean it's healthy. Low fat, I'm intrigued, doesn't make it healthy. Let's turn it over and you'll see that there's 2 servings in a can. And I'm going to eat that whole can, I can tell you that. There's 80 calories per serving. All right, that's interesting. And there's 720 milligrams in a serving. Now, our guideline for sodium when we're eating something in a package or a can or a box is we want to keep that sodium as close to possible. It's not a hard rule, but it's just a guideline. We want it to be as close to the number of calories as possible. So 720 is, if my math is correct, 9 times the amount of sodium than there are calories. That is crazy. And if I was to eat that whole can, I'd get 1,440 milligrams of sodium. I am pushing against the upper limit of my daily amount right there. Okay? Now, I want you to also know when you're eating whole plant-based foods like fruits and vegetables and Swiss chard and beans and whole grains, you're going to be getting between 500 probably to 750 milligrams of naturally occurring sodium. So this is why if we can keep the milligrams of sodium as close to a 1-to-1 ratio as possible with the number of calories per serving, we're not going to go over that 1,500 milligrams. Because again, the amount of packaged foods we're eating on a daily basis should not be that much. Sugar is the second kind kind of culprit. The average American is consuming 30 added teaspoons of sugar a day. That's 140 pounds a year. It's absolutely ridiculous. On the Engine 2 7-Day Rescue Challenge, we want to keep it closer to 2 teaspoons a day. And that's typically when we're making salad dressings or occasionally when we have a dessert. Now, let's look at the amount of sugar in packaged foods because it is everywhere. It's in yogurt, 26 grams in a 6 ounce. It's in marinades and sauces, 8 grams in a tablespoon. It's in jams, 12 grams in a tablespoon. It's in salad dressings, 12 grams in 2 tablespoons. It's in pasta sauces, 11 grams in half a cup. It's in oatmeal, 17 grams in this 1.9 ounce cup. And it's in all kinds of drinks and teas, 34 grams. To put this into context, there's 4 grams in a teaspoon of sugar. So you just divide the number of grams by 4, and that'll give you how many teaspoons are in that product. So the Yoplait, divide by 4, you got 4, let's see, you got 6.5 teaspoons of sugar. That oatmeal, divide by 4, you've got a little over 4 teaspoons of sugar there. But you can see here, sugar, it's ubiquitous. It's in absolutely everything. So we got to learn how to read a label. Now, we would expect sugar in these vegan marshmallows, as you can see here. There's been some changes in the nutritional facts panel. So now manufacturers have to declare how many grams of added sugar are in their product. So you can see here, we got 17 grams. So divide that by 4, we got over 4 added teaspoons per serving, and a serving size, as you can see up above, is 2 marshmallows. That's a lot. Now, in the old days, I would make you go to the ingredients and make sure there was no sugar in the first 3 ingredients, and that's because by law, the food manufacturers have to list in descending order by weight each ingredient that's in their product. But with the new rule change, we can just go under sugars and we can see the added sugars. But for kicks and grins, if you want to see, you can go in the ingredients, and sometimes you'll see 6 and 7 different types of sugars that are listed in the ingredients. It is mind-blowing. This vanilla yogurt that's coconut, we turn it over and you can see here there are 15 grams of added sugar here. Divide by 4. That basically just gives us a little shy of 4 teaspoons of sugar there. And it is the second ingredient on that list there. Lastly, we got fat. America is consuming way too much fat in their diets. 35 to 50% of our calories are coming from fat, and most of that fat is coming from saturated fat. We got trans fats in there, and not nearly enough is coming from the essential polyunsaturated fatty acids that are really found predominantly only in whole plant-based foods. So during this Engine 2 7-Day Rescue Challenge, we're bringing that fat content down to 10 to 15% of calories, because this is when the healing is going to occur. This is the most anti-inflammatory 7 days you're ever going to experience. Now, we want to read labels, and when we're eating whole plant-based foods, unless we're doing nuts and seeds, and remember, we're only doing 1 small handful of walnuts a day, and that's 80% fat, but otherwise, all the foods that we're eating, the fat content of them is probably somewhere between 5 on the low end and 18% on the high end. So I know you're going to be hitting a home run there. When it comes to packaged foods, our guideline is let's keep it below 25%, and let's make sure to read the ingredients to make sure there's no hidden oils. So look at this. This is an outer aisle, plant-powered pizza crust and wrap. It's made with fresh cauliflower. Looks pretty exciting from the outside. However, we turn it over, and what we see is that there's 120 calories per wrap, and there's 60 of these calories are coming from fat. So we do the math on that. That's 50%. So that's higher than we want. And then I always look at the ingredients to see if there's oils, animal products, or anything that's lurking in there. And you can see here, my gosh, we've got whole cage-free eggs, and we've got Parmesan cheese. So I was thinking this was a plant-strong, potentially product. It's not even plant-based, right? It's got some cauliflower in it, but it's got eggs, it's got cheese. So you guys, this is why we have to become label-reading ninja warriors. We've also got all these products like Daiya cheese that's deliciously dairy-free. It's made with chickpeas, but let's turn it over and put it to the test, as Dr. Michael Greger would say. And you can see there's 80 calories per serving, 5 grams of fat per serving. I take 5 grams, I multiply it by 10, because there's roughly 10 calories in a gram. 50 divided by 80, this is 62.5% fat. And if you look at the ingredients, you can see that the second and third and fourth ingredients are all different types of oil. So this isn't gonna fly. This isn't gonna work, okay? And for kicks and grins, the sodium is 230 milligrams. Remember, we want to keep that in a 1-to-1 ratio, closer to 80, and it's almost 2.5 times above where we want it. All right, gang, we're almost there. Why we want to move? Man, we have become so sedentary as a society, and it has become the new smoking. Sitting has become the new smoking, and it is slowly killing us and is robbing us of our health. These bodies, they were meant to move, they were meant to groove, just like Ann and Essie, my parents, do every single day. Take a look.
What's one of the things you love so much about exercise?
Well, it makes you calm and easy of approach.
And Ann.
And you're going out for a run in the fields. Why do you love exercise?
Rep. It's important. I mean, if you don't exercise, you just shrivel up. You can't move. And I can move.
Yes, you can. Go get them.
Okay.
I love that woman. She is so awesome. But as you can see, these guys get their groove on every day, and they're into their late 80s and crushing it. This study came out from the Cleveland Clinic just about 2 years ago, and the headline is, "Not exercising may be worse for your health than smoking." And this was done over the course of 24 years. It included over 122,000 people. And the lead researcher says here, and I'm going to read it to you, being unfit on a treadmill or in an exercise stress test has a worse prognosis as far as death than being hypertensive, being diabetic, or being a current smoker. We've never seen something as pronounced as this and as objective as this. I mean, that right there, it says it all. So that is a great reason for us to move. Find something that you want to engage in. And literally, in the book, I say, walk. Even if it's just 5 to 10 minutes a day, just walk. Absolutely adore walking. But it's terrific for your mood. It gets those happy endorphins going, that it raises your serotonin levels, and it will make your whole day better. I like to kick off every day with a swim or a bike ride or potentially both, and now I'm the best version of myself. It turns a good day into an absolutely great day. It improves your brain. We know from the work of the Esselstyns that you're going to hear from this weekend, you get blood flow to the hippocampus, and it helps alleviate and prevent dementia and Alzheimer's and TIAs and strokes. So get that blood moving and grooving with exercise, and it improves your brain health. It also boosts our immune system. It makes it better for us to defend against infection. The exception to the rule is if you're over-exercising, like doing Ironman triathlons or ultra endurance events, these can actually suppress your immune system. But otherwise, an hour or two of exercise absolutely will rock your immune system. If any of you are having difficulty embracing this lifestyle as far as the taste, exercise. And all of a sudden, that bowl of steel-cut oatmeal with blueberries and bananas, that bowl of brown rice with black beans, with avocado and roasted corn and tomatoes is going to look spectacular, and it's going to taste spectacular. It's great for bone health. Again, so many of us are sitting and we're not exercising and we're not stressing our bones. Just like if you want to grow strong muscles, you have to stress your muscles. In the same exact way, you have to stress your bones. And if you don't stress your bones, they're going to turn to styrofoam and you're going to get osteoporosis. The good news is we can reverse this disease, but you got to do some sort of weight-bearing exercise, get weights, do squats, put a backpack on, walk around the house with an extra 20, 25, 30 pounds. But there's just no reason. And the other things that you can do to help for your bone health, eat plant-based, right? And now you're not basically excreting excessive amounts of calcium. Don't smoke. Don't do soft drinks, and don't do excessive amounts of sodium. All things that we're not doing on the 7-Day Rescue Program. It enhances your energy. I know sometimes, I can start dragging in the latter half of the day, but if I can get in a walk or a swim or even a 10-minute bike ride, all of a sudden it's like a mini rebirth of sorts, and I'm the best version of myself for my wife and for my kids and for my team. It's easier to get out of bed. I find after a nice day of working out, I go to sleep. As soon as my head hits the pillow, I sleep all night through, and I am refreshed and ready to charge into another day. It prevents muscle loss. So this is called sarcopenia. It's a medical term for kind of the wasting away of muscle. And it really starts after the age of 30. And we do not want to lose muscle mass. We want to maintain it. It's fantastic for increasing the rate at which we burn calories. It also helps prevent spills and falls as we get into our 60s, 70s, and 80s. And this on the left, you can see this is a cross-section of a quadricep, of a thigh. And you can see the inside is the healthy muscle. The outside is fatty tissue. We all have a little bit of fatty tissue. And here, this is after sarcopenia has hit for a couple decades. You can see the fatty tissue on the outside and the muscle on the inside. Now let me show you an actual cross-section here that I borrowed from my father. On the left, you see a 40-year-old triathlete's quadriceps, nice and muscular, just a little bit of fatty tissue on the outside. And on the right, you see a 74-year-old sedentary man, a lot of fatty tissue, adipose tissue on the outside, and just a little bit of muscle mass. And this 70-year-old triathlete underneath it, look at that. He has just as much muscle mass as that 40-year-old triathlete with very little fatty tissue. That's what we're looking for. And you just by exercising consistently, you guys can have this. Look at Ann Esselstyn dragging this tire.
Okay, everybody, here comes Ann. I showed her my workout tool, and she said she wanted to try it. So here she is, dragging a tire up and down the street. I'm using this device to train for an ultra that I want to do this winter, sorry. And Ann decided she wanted to try it. What'd you think, Ann?
It wasn't so bad going down, but coming up there's sort of a slight hill.
Yeah,
It's hard.
dragging a tire.
Oh my God.
All right, the power of plant-based eating.
Woo!
Onward.
All right, everybody, get those tires and drag them down your road. Okay, I want to close with this video. When my 7-Day Rescue book came out, I went around to Whole Food Market stores And I talk to people about the 7 pillars that I want them to follow for 7 days. Anybody can do anything for 7 days. And then you decide afterwards how much you want to embrace and what your takeaways are. And I loved it when I was signing books afterwards, and people would come up to me and share the amazing success stories that they've experienced following the 7 pillars of the 7-day rescue program. And this particular woman I videotaped, and she just epitomizes to me what can happen. Many of you may see yourself in Jane, and if so, I would encourage you to dive into this lifestyle. It'll be one of the best things that you ever do. All right, Jane. I'm here in LA. I'm here with Jane, who drove in from Palm Springs, right?
Yeah.
And Jane, you've been doing this 15 months. What's happened here?
15 months time. My fibromyalgia is gone. My asthma is gone. My lifelong acid reflux is gone. Sciatic pain, knee pain, I've had injections. Chronic sinus infections, 15 medications gone. I've got my life back. I don't have chronic pain anymore. I don't have insomnia anymore. I couldn't climb the stairs at work. I had to take the elevator. And now I can go up and down 10 times, and I try to do it 3 times a day at work. And I've lost 120 pounds.
Say what? And what about your cholesterol?
My cholesterol's down about 80 points. I had a stroke when I was 35, and it's because of my lifestyle. It's because of the drive-through windows and not reading labels and eating anything that would hold still.
So is there any way you could show us that photo of you?
Yeah, I'd be glad to show you my photo. Let me get this out.
So this is Jane before she kind of found the 7-day rescue.
Before I found 7-day rescue challenge, this is my photo. So that's my before.
Do you mind if I just let everybody see your amazing figure?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
Jane, way to go.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, love, love, love it. And this is why at Plant Strong, this is why we do what we do. This is the most gratifying, rewarding work on the planet, helping people reclaim their health. And it's an absolutely beautiful thing. And I think that you're going to find from hearing from all of these Brock stars over the course of the next 5 days that we're going to drip out to you, that they are just as passionate and just as enamored with the lifestyle as we are at Plant Strong. And again, I am just so tickled that you guys are here for Plant Stock 2021, the 10th anniversary. We're going to have a blast together over the next 5 days as we roll into the Plant Strong era. So long live rock and roll, and long live living Plant Strong. Thanks. It's dinner time at the Esselstyns. We're sitting here around the Lazy Susan table. This is a tradition at all Cryle homes. And I want to introduce you to everybody here. I'm sure you know who they are, but just to make sure. So this here, looking as beautiful as ever, we have Ann Cryle Esselstyn.
I don't have my tire.
You're not dragging your tire. No, you're not. We have Ann Cryle Esselstyn, my mother. Here we have Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr., my father, looking dapper as usual. Here we have my sister, Jane Esselstyn. Jane's got her patented scarf on, as usual.
My Travis scarf, yes.
And then we have her husband, my brother-in-law, Brian Hart. So everybody, thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of the 10th anniversary of Plant Stock.
We miss it.
I know, it is so exciting. So
I am so hungry.
I know, but before we dig into this meal, and we'll share with you in just a little bit what it is, I'd love for us just to kind of go around the horn and share some of our favorite memories of 10 years of Plant Stock. Does anything like leap out to you?
Well, what leaps out to me is somebody that did leap out to me, and that is for all those years, I cut zinnias and hydrangeas, and I arranged them all over the tables. But eventually, I put some in some of the little outhouses. Is that what you call them?
Porta potties.
Porta potties.
Yes.
And one time, I was walking by a porta potty, and a man walked out of the porta potty, and he said, "I have never been in a porta potty with flowers." And I just thought, wow, that really made Plant Stock special for me.
And you can see some beautiful flowers right here that are Ann's touch.
Like.
Yeah. Ann loves her flowers. How about you, Essie? You have a memory?
Well, I think there have been plenty of memories. I think the ones that really jump out at you are the ones where people have had a chance to really reverse their disease and see that they've got a future ahead of them that's not cloudy, that they themselves are the locus of control to control their health. I'll just choose one that.
No, wait. This is
a Plant Stock memory.
Oh.
You want a good memory of Plant Stock.
Gosh, have I done it wrong?
Yes.
We have our
Well,
members.
the other thing that is so exciting is the groundswell that has happened with plant-based nutrition, because I can remember in the 1991.
This is a memory from Plant Stock.
Yeah.
Wait,
Let's start slowly, you see. 1991, when I directed the first national conference on the elimination of heart disease, we had 100 people.
Oh, that's right.
And I think tonight, Plant Stock, attending this, there are over 5,000.
I think we have about 6,000. Yeah, that's great.
I have my own mic. My favorite Plant Stock memory is actually coming from somebody who I met on through social media, and he's become such a friend. I don't even know him, but he's become such a friend. He's an author. His name's Tom Ryan. He's actually in attendance tonight at Plant Stock, and I have permission to speak about him, even sharing his name.
Doing success stories yet?
We're not doing.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You and Essie.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to share about Tom Ryan. But pause on Tom.
is falling apart. Pause on Tom.
Pause on. Oh, you want me to talk about Tom? I'm being directed to talk about Tom.
Go for it.
You know what?
She's combining the tooth
we are
questions.
so excited to talk about success stories, way more than we're talking about like Plant Stock rules. That's why we're all here. I love how it brought our whole family together. Kids, like little wee babies in our family, to the oldest, chieftains in our family. So I want to talk about the next generation. And Tom, I'm going to talk about you. And I know you're in the chat there somewhere. But he's an author. He wrote a wonderful book, a number of books. But I want to specifically call out a book called Following Atticus. Atticus was his wee little dog who he followed up and over bazillion 4,000-foot peaks. He weighed over 300 pounds at this time. He didn't even know he was morbidly obese. Point being, eventually he got sick. And Tom has given me his really condensed health here, which is shocking. He collapsed at home with kidney failure, heart failure, lung failure, blood clots, stroke, and his heart racing above 130 beats per minute. He was over 330 pounds at the time, but he spent 5 weeks in Maine Medical and somehow got out of the hospital. He got home in time to be with his dogs. But what happened after all this is that he went on a whole food plant-based diet through Dr. Greger and through following your program. And I'm going to be really fast here. I was in tears when he sent me the news that he bought his plant stock t-shirt for this event today. He used to wear an XXXL, 3 extra larges, whatever size that is. He bought a size medium today. He weighs 175 pounds. He gave me he's cut himself in half. He's thriving. He's writing a book about all this. Go, Tom Ryan. Go, everyone else, just like Tom. All right, Brian, sorry. Plant stock success story, wherever we are. The wheels have come off the bus.
My favorite plant stock story was from 3 years ago when we launched the Esselstyn Foundation. I'm going to talk about the Esselstyn Foundation a little bit later and when we talk about success stories. But that was my favorite. It was also in North Carolina. And Jane, as many of you may know, Jane and I met when we lived in North Carolina when we worked for Outward Bound. And so being in Black Mountain, of course, 3 years ago has a very special place in my heart as well. So there's one for a good memory of plant stock.
Yeah.
Brooke,
I've got
a memory?
I've got a lot of memories of plant stock. I can remember that first plant stock, 2011, walking across the dewy lawn, getting up on stage and looking out over 400 people and thinking that, wow, this is really going to happen. And this was my first big event like that. And just the people that we have had come through Plant Stock, whether it's T. Colin Campbell, whether it's Khaled bin Alawi, one of the princes of Saudi Arabia, whether it's John Mackey, Eric Adams, who is now going to be more than likely the mayor of New York City. It is just absolutely remarkable. I think one of the craziest moments that I've ever had at Plant Stock was in Asheville, North Carolina, when Puddles the Clown grabbed me and took me up on stage, and I got to be part of his act. That was kind of terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Whew. Yeah. But why don't do we want to, anybody else got a success story or a memory they want to share?
I think Brian's got a big one. Well, you got one, Missy. You didn't get your success story.
Because we all have helped so many people over the last decade, and literally hundreds upon hundreds, but maybe there's one or two that kind of stick out in particular.
Well, I will say that I cannot. I cannot. You see, for the last 30, maybe 35 years, or how long? Well, whenever my husband started doing this, we have been getting emails from people all over the world. And so when these incredible emails come, Essie says, let's save that one for the book. The next book, we have got so many of these incredible saved emails, and they really come from everywhere. I mean, crazy. And what amazes me is that so many of them are people who we've never met, but they have read Rip or your books or something, and they do it. They just do it. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Off the top of my head, just because we often talk about coronary artery disease of the heart, and it's nice just to give you a memory a very short memory of a woman who was a book publisher who really required all her intellectual faculties. And 5 years ago, one evening, she had a stroke, a double stroke. She had an ischemic stroke, which is about 90% of the strokes where an artery clots off and you get a sort of a heart attack of your brain. And then at the same time, she had another stroke, which is a hemorrhagic stroke, where a vessel actually ruptures and you bleed into your head. So she was left with, she was unable to speak. She couldn't move on one side of her body. And for 3 years, she struggled through this, and somehow came across my book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, which she then, after reading it, she called me and I called her back. And
He's amazing about calling everybody back.
She was absolutely, totally, 100% committed. And what was, all of her numbers improved, and she has now got all these wonderful smooth vessels. But to give you an example, one of the carotid arteries that she had going to her brain was 90% blocked when she started this. The most recent reevaluation of that artery shows that it is now 10% blocked. In other words, she has unblocked it by 80%, dealing with whole food, plant-based nutrition.
Wow.
And not only that, but she has written articles, right, for the stroke. Anyway, she's amazing.
Brian?
Be a Tom Ryan.
So my success story, I think, is a little bit different. It actually has to do with the work of the Esselstyn Foundation. We have been in existence for a little over 2 years, and the Esselstyn Foundation, for those of you who don't know about it, is a 501c3 public charity that we formed a little over 2 years ago because we wanted to make sure this plant-based message got out to anybody and everybody that was willing to listen to the message. We wanted to make it free of charge. And so our foundation raises money. We're a 501c3, like I said. We raise money from the public, in which many of you have already given. 500 of you have already, and through the checkout for Plant Stock, have already given money to add to our coffers so that we can give this work away for free. And I'm really excited to announce that this weekend is our biggest fundraising campaign of the year. We are trying to raise $50,000 this week. And the reason we're doing 50,000 is because an incredible donor has stepped up and said they will match dollar for dollar every single dollar we raise this week, so that if we raise 50, that means it converts to $100,000 for us and the foundation, which is a game-changing amount of money that we can raise. And so this weekend, my hope, and you're going to see information in the chat, and you're going to see information at the bottom of the screen at different times, if you all wouldn't mind doing this, but if we can get, there are 6,000 people currently signed up for Plant Stock. If we can get half of those people, 500 of you have already given, which I'm so thankful for, and that is my success story, is that 500 people have already given money, but if half of you, if we can get 3,000 of you to simply give $10 each, that puts us at 30, and I'm happy to report we've actually already raised close to 20,000 already. So if we can raise another $30,000 in the next 5 days, we will hit $100,000 through our match. And so I just wanted to let you all know how excited I am about that as the executive director, and please help us allow us to do this good work and give it away for free to partnering organizations around the country, actually around the world. We actually have a partnership currently in the country of Uganda, so we're actually working all over the world. So thanks so much for asking, and I look forward to hearing from all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and thanks, everybody. I'm going to share one success story. His name is Ken Lander. He heard about us through actually a friend of mine who was in the tea business. Ken has a coffee estate in Costa Rica, and he was 440 pounds. His ejection fraction from his heart was less than 10%, and his cardiologist was just very concerned about Ken. He told him he was going to do this plant-based thing, and his cardiologist basically said, yeah, good luck with that. And he came back 6 months later, and his ejection fraction was over 50%. He'd lost close to 100 pounds, and literally his doctor examined him and said, wait right here, I've got to see somebody, but wait right here because I need to talk to you about something. Yeah. And he went away, and Ken was like, oh my gosh, he's going to tell me some really, really bad news. And he came back and he basically said, now you need to tell me exactly what you've been doing, because, and I mean this when I ask you this, did you get a heart transplant? And Ken obviously did not have a heart transplant, but he is now down to almost 220 pounds. He's got 100% of his ejection fraction going on now. He is running 10Ks. He's rowing. It is a remarkable story, so much so that he actually spoke at 2 of our Plant Stock events in the past. And he was just following the Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease book that he happened to Google and find that sent him on this path. So remarkable stuff. So let's talk about what's for dinner tonight. Jane or Ann, would you like to let everybody know? Brian?
Well, this is what we always have. So this is actually, it was so easy to kick it in the goal tonight with this dinner because this is what we have all the time. I mean, we have this. This is at least once a week. At least once a week. We have it when guests are over. We have it when we are the family. As a family, microphone. We have it when.
Say it again.
Christmas Eve. It's our amazing dinner, and it's sort of like this. Although,
there are little variations.
I have to say that this is the fancy Christmas Eve with things.
Wait, can we do a top shot? Yep. Okay. This is rice and beans, and this is just this is tonight's short grain brown rice. We do long grain brown rice. We do brown basmati. We do brown jasmine, but rice is. Oh, I just got the rice in your water, Daddy.
Let's take that off.
Okay, and then Brian made the beans. Brian's our bean master.
The black beans are sofrito black beans. They're very basic. You just take dried beans, put them in a pot, cut up a green pepper and an onion, and a few cloves of garlic, put them in there, bring it to a boil, let it simmer for a while at like a boiling level for like 15 or 20 minutes, then turn it down to a simmer and just let it sit. Let's let it simmer for 3 hours and just keep adding water as needed. And then toward the end of the cooking process, you just add some spices, cumin, chili powder, maybe a little barbecue sauce, just throw a little barbecue taste in there. But just however you like to do your beans, very straightforward, but it's our favorite.
And what we do to always keep this interesting and exciting and new is you just change the toppings. So you can see all these colorful, dynamic toppings here.
Can I talk about it? This is a corn salsa, and this is in like the Engine 2 cookbook. I think it's in our Prevent and Reverse book. Anyway, this is just wonderful corn, lime, and onion, and this is some sauerkraut that it's got. This is sort of a garlicky one. That's a beet and carrot one. Tomatoes. This is cilantro. My mom grows sprouts. What kind of sprouts are those, Mommy?
Those are broccoli sprouts. Those are broccoli sprouts, and underneath them are kale sprouts. Amazing. Eat sprouts everywhere.
And this is a mango salsa, just mango, onions, and lime juice. And this is a treat because it's Plant Stock's 10th anniversary, guacamole. This does not always make it onto the table, but when it does, oh.
Yeah.
It's great.
Now, I have to just interrupt 1 minute. Oh, what? And just say that when we have rice and beans, just my husband and me, I cook the rice. I take a can of beans, dump it in a pot with the juice. I take frozen corn and thaw it. I chop up tomatoes. But the only thing I really do is I take a whole mango and cut it up. That makes it. But that can be so easy, so simple. This is amazingly delicious, but if you want to be really fast.
I wanted to quickly add, wait, top shot again if you can. This is zucchini bread I made here in front because it's an end of garden season, and we've got zucchinis the size of our forearm, if not our whole arm, in our garden, baseball bat size zucchinis. So we've had zucchini bread, and we were sort of hungry as we were waiting here, so we started eating our zucchini bread. It's so typical.
See, he took one. He cut it.
We all started eating it. Anyway, and it's that recipe's also in the Engine 2 cookbook. We did not expect it to be part of this event, so if you want to follow along, it's an Engine 2 cookbook. I think we even have a YouTube of it. If you want.
I will add one other thing, which Jane and Brian are going to just leave the table.
What?
But one of the things that Rip and I actually like is low sodium tamari. Sometimes on the rice and beans, right?
It's a mix of flavor profiles. I can't stand it.
I do, and I like some sriracha on top as well. Yeah.
So you can do any.
So
you can really do anything.
Yeah. So we have this at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. I know that we, the three of us, you guys went to a Dead concert last night.
Dead and Company.
Dead and Company, and we had rice and beans last night.
Did you really?
We had rice and beans last night.
But frozen corn, chopped tomatoes, beans out of a can.
and we had a little bit of avocado, but it was delicious. Can't ever get enough of it. What just off the top of your head is another favorite simple meal that you would say you guys do on a weekly basis?
Well, we take this and combine it after we have leftovers, and then you have a rice and beans salad if it's cold, or you can heat it up at night inside a burrito or inside a quesadilla with a little bit of mashed up sweet potato to make it be like the mortar. So the versions thereof.
That's a nice way of upscaling it, upcycling it. That's really cool.
Upcycling.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, I like combining all the leftovers, and then you can put it, like, especially if it's just the mango, the tomatoes, the some whatever, corn, and put it in a salad.
Yeah. Jane, I know one of the things that you are magnificent with are potato bars, especially when we have a big crowd.
Well, Brian's come to love these little wee potatoes. And
they're so good when he makes them.
It's called peewee, or they're just little. I mean, they're like the size of a small walnut. But those are great to have in a potato bar, or actually just some Yukon Gold potatoes. And then you just like this. It's like Chipotle at home, and you've got a sweet potato or a potato or the wheat potatoes, and then you put on all the same sort of salsas, toppings, fixings, whatever you like. And we especially love having our famous Casa de Luz inspired walnut sauce, which we have some people here who said they would even frost a chocolate cake with the walnut sauce. They're so in love with it. Is that right? Yeah. It's a great sauce.
So let me ask you guys, let's move away from the food for a second before we dig in here. But we have a lot of people that are new to the plant-based lifestyle that are joining us tonight for Plant Stock, or I should say over the next 5 days. What advice would you give to them as they're just beginning on their journey? Any particular advice?
Well, when you're just starting, the KISS method is the only method. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Don't get hung up on fancy recipes. I mean, if you can have some version of oats every day for breakfast and some sort of bean meal at night, just keep it simple. Don't overthink it, and don't get freaked out by some of the recipes that are in these cookbooks, because we love Jane and Rip and Ann's cookbooks, but they're recipes. You don't have to do them all. They're lovely, but just in the beginning, keep it simple. Keep it simple.
Baked potatoes, sweet or white. Oh, great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Salsa on them.
Some people talk about batch cooking, and that might sound like a fancy new term to some people, but it basically means like cooks things in a batch, like make a lot of them. And my further tip there is I always talk with Brian about like cooking the long timers. Like there's things that take a long time, and so those are the long timers. And so long timers for us are having potatoes cooked ahead of time. If we're watching the news or watching, I can't think of our most recent show.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Ted Lasso's not long enough. Game of Thrones is old. I watched Manifest recently with Brian, and we could have put our potatoes in during Manifest, and it would just they cook. Well, they're passively cooking while you're watching your show. Same with sweet potatoes. Same with rice in a rice cooker. Even oatmeal for the next morning. Just the long timers. Cook them ahead of time when you're doing something else, and cook a lot of them, because then it's just so easy to go to.
Well, I just have to say that 35 years ago, right, when you decided we'd change, there was no internet. There were no cookbooks, so we just did it. And some of the food was awful. But you know what? When you've made it, even though it's awful, you're going to eat it because you know it's the best thing for you. So I would just say, jump into it. Do it. Your taste is going to change. I promise you it's going to change.
Mm-hmm. Let me throw out another question for you guys. Let's say you're the only person that's eating this way in your household. What do you think is the best way to manage that? Any suggestions for somebody that's having a hard time, either with their spouse or with children that are not embracing this lifestyle?
Yeah, I think the idea probably is not to preach to them. That let them. So often, what we've seen happen is suddenly that family member is the one that begins to absolutely glow. Or especially if they've had a disease which is readily responsive to plant-based nutrition. So often what happens without being heavy-handed about it, suddenly some of the distant cousins and so forth say, well, I'd like to do what Uncle Jimmy has done. He's gotten slender, he's no longer diabetic, he doesn't have any more angina. These are wonderful things that can actually that could happen. I think you do the soft sell.
Brian, you.
The most important thing to do is do what's right for you. I mean, you can't freak out too much about trying to change everybody else in your life. To Essie's point, but through example, you're going to get to people. People are going to realize that your choices are making improvements in your life, and they're really affecting you. Also, just a really basic logistical piece is make food where it's very easy to remove things like cheese and meat. So if people in your family are not ready to make the change, things like a Chipotle-style burrito bar, sort of like what we're having here, makes it easy so that you don't have to eat the meat and the cheese, but the people in your family who still want to can eat it. And it might be more gradual for them. But that's just an easy, but ultimately, you got to do what's right for you. Dr. Michael Clapper always reminds us so eloquently that if you're ever in a hospital bed sick, there's nobody there but you. You're the person, and so you've got to do what's right for you, and people will follow when they see your good example.
Exactly, Brian. Let me ask you this. You guys, we're all big fans of green leafies, right? Essie, you advocate that people should get 5 to 6 fist-sized servings every day. What are some of your tricks in order for people to get 5 or 6 servings of green leafies a day? Because so many people say, I can't do it, it's impossible.
Eat them.
Eat them, all right. But what are your tricks with pasta and with...
In your oats.
Yeah, I think it doesn't have to be a trick.
Yeah.
People have to know why it is that we want them to have the green leafy vegetables. The reason that I use it with all my cardiovascular heart patients is the greens will help to restore nitric oxide. And it is nitric oxide, which is that magic molecule of gas that is made by your endothelial cells that line the artery, that absolutely determines, that is, the amount of nitric oxide you have determines your vascular health. And so if you think about it, what my patients are doing from dawn to dusk, morning to night, all day long, they are absolutely restoring nitric oxide, the very molecule, the deficiency of which gave them this disease in the first place.
Actually, we're going to give you lots of ideas coming up in some of our demos. So
I forgot about that.
Right.
Yeah. So
Think of greens as a base for everything.
yeah.
Yeah, we think of greens as a base for everything.
I mean, at Jane and Brian's, we have these white dishes, they're sort of bowls. And every bowl, you come to every meal, and in every bowl, there is this in the bottom of it. So that's how it begins.
Put your pasta on top of it. Put your beans on top of it.
Put your
Greens
potatoes on
first
top of
in the
it.
bowl, and then anything else you're having just goes right on top, and you'll eat the greens mixed in.
All right, everybody. Next, we're going to share with you some resources that are going to help support you on your journey. And after that, we're going to go right to Adam Sudd, one of my absolute favorite success stories. So hang on. Here we go.
Can we eat?
Let's eat. Let's eat, for sure.
Brian, you start to write.
Yeah.
At Plant Strong, we are dedicated to help you live your best Plant Strong life. Now, I want to take a few minutes and go over all of the tools and the resources that we have available at your fingertips. Firstly, we have an amazing support community. You belong here. It's so important to have community to help you be successful, and it's absolutely free. Join thousands of other people that are part of our community. You can share recipes, resources, and ideas, discuss the Plant Strong podcast that airs every Thursday and always is a blast. You can attend live Q&A sessions with myself, my father, and other Plant Strong guests, connect with like-minded people, and also have early access to all of our products. Join today. Go to community.plantstrong.com. Also, if meal planning is an absolute hassle, if it makes you want to take a nap, join our meal planner. It's one of our most powerful tools. You have access to hundreds of recipes, personalized meal recommendations, adaptive grocery lists that are self-generated based upon the meals you select. You can save your favorite menus, search by ingredient, quick cooking videos, and support from live meal planning experts. Go to mealplanner.plantstrong.com, use the code PLANTSTRONG to save $20 off an annual membership. Also, we have our Rescue 10X online coaching platform. Our next group starts Tuesday, September 21st. This is 10 weeks of mindset mastery and group coaching where you're going to have access to live weekly group video calls, weekly videos from myself, at-home activities, weekly goal setting and accountability that is so important, habit building to sustain the Plant Strong lifestyle. You can register today and you can save $20 off the retail price of $199. The special link is in the chat. The Plant Strong podcast airs every Thursday. Have so many dynamic, wonderful scientists, doctors, athletes, individuals. You definitely want to tune in and be inspired and motivated. If you want to join one of our in-person retreats, we've been doing them now for almost 10 years. Our next one is in Sedona, Arizona from October 12th to the 16th. We only have a wait list right now, but join it. You never know what will happen. Our next immersion program in 2022 will be in Black Mountain, North Carolina, and that'll be from March 1st to the 6th. Visit plantstrong.com for all those details. I have 4 books that I've written over the years. The Engine 2 Diet that came out in 2009. Plant Strong that overcomes all the objections that came out in 2013. The Engine 2 7-Day Rescue Diet. It is amazing what you can do in just 7 days to set sail on your plant-based journey. And then the Engine 2 Cookbook that I did with my sister Jane with a lot of wonderful recipes. There's videos and movies that are out there to help you on your journey. Forks Over Knives, if you haven't seen it, this is a classic, came out in 2011. You have the Engine 2 Kitchen Rescue that I paired up with the creator of Forks Over Knives to do this one. And then also in 2019, we had the release of The Game Changers. It's available on Netflix. Total winner of a documentary. And then you've got all the ones that are out there, What the Health, Cowspiracy, and a slew of others that are fabulous. If you're looking for some of my father's books, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, you also have the Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease Cookbook by my sister Jane and my mother Ann. And then, of course, an amazing resource is Jane's YouTube channel, Jane Esselstyn, where she always has my mother Ann as her favorite guest, and they're always whipping up something fantastic. If you haven't tried any of the new Plant Strong products, we just launched them, and they are fabulous. We have cereals, the new Rips Big Bowl cereals. We have Dayton Raisin, we have Banana Walnut, and we have Berry Almond. All fantastic ways to start the day. If you're looking for guilt-free granolas that totally are going to crush your cravings, look no further. You've got the tahini chocolate chip cookie, you've got the classic oatmeal, you've got our all-American apple pie, and our crispy mixed berry crumble. All of these are no added sugar, no added oils, and 100% plant-based. We just launched our new and improved pizza crust. It's 12 inches, it's 100% whole grain, organic, and it's a pizza crust kit pack. So you get 5 crusts in a pack along with 5 sauce packs, and you add the sauce pack and then you customize with your favorite vegetables. It's a total fan favorite. We just launched some broths and some chilies and stews. The chilies and the stews, these are ready to eat meals. You just have to heat them up. You can tear off the perforated top, and then you can put them in the stove top, or you can put them in a bowl and microwave them. We have a white bean chili, we have a firehouse chili, a Indian lentil stew, and a carrot chickpea stew. All of these are 100% plant-based, no added sugar, no added oil, and lightly salted. Lastly, we have our 4 new broths. These were inspired by the Engine 2 low-sodium veggie stock that people just adored. So we have our veggie broth, we have our mushroom broth, shiitake mushroom broth, we have our Spanish-style sofrito broth, and our sweet corn broth. All of these are organic. They're all unsalted, oil-free, no added sugars, and use these to totally elevate and to enhance all of your cooking. If you're looking for inspiration, just scan the QR code on the back of the package, and it will inspire you with some spectacular recipes that you can make using each of these broths. And lastly, we have our naked popcorn, no added salt, no added oils. You dress it up just the way you like. So for all of this and much, much more, simply go to plantstrong.com. For all of this, I want you to know that we want to be here for you every step of the way. Thanks so much. All right, let's move on with the show while the rest of my family is eating downstairs. Our first speaker of Plantstock 2021 is Adam Sudd. Adam has truly one of the most remarkable transformation stories that I have the personal privilege of seeing unfold right before my own eyes. I wouldn't have believed it unless I saw this transformation over several years, and he has become such a remarkable gentleman and human being, and all the spectacular work that he's doing now in the world. He is the founder of Plant-Based for Positive Change. He is dedicated to the research of diet and mental health on addiction recovery, and he just finished running the very first research study to investigate the effects of a plant-based diet using intervention on early addiction recovery outcomes. I can't wait to introduce you to Adam Sudd and his talk from my journey from pills to plants. Take it away, Adam.
Hi, my name is Adam Sudd, and I want to share with you all my story. And it starts in the very beginning. I'm a 7th generation Texan and a Jew, which means I grew up eating burgers and barbecue and bagels and blintzes, something that I like to call the standard American diet, wearing cowboy boots with chutzpah. And it was the diet of my culture. It was the diet of my family. It was the diet of their family. So there was never any questioning about it. I mean, when you're 5 years old, why would you ever question your diet? And I had an amazing childhood. I had an identical twin brother. I have an identical twin brother. And a few things that profoundly affected me, specifically my relationship with food and with myself. There was moments in my childhood when I can remember being criticized, not maliciously, not intentionally, for my appearance. I started to gain a little bit of weight as a kid. And I can remember being questioned about why it looked like I was gaining weight. And I was like 10 years old, summer in Texas, in a bathing suit. And it was almost as if I immediately went from loving and accepting myself physically and emotionally without question and without judgment to now believing there were conditions upon which I was allowed to love and accept myself completely. And this scared me because if there was one condition, what were the others? And why did I not know what they were? And I started to become very aware. I was very hyper vigilant of other people and how they responded to me, because I wanted to know if there was something that I needed to fix about me. And I didn't know any other way to solve my issues with food. And I could tell it was an issue with my parents. So I just began to hide eating junk food. I became a closet eater at a very young age. I would run into my bedroom and turn off the lights and sit in the corner alone in the dark, and I would eat. And I would do this because I was ashamed and I was afraid. I was afraid that at any moment, my parents were going to come in, they were going to open the door, they were going to turn on the light, and they were going to see me for what I was, which was a broken, scared child who was unable to do what I thought they needed me to do to be acceptable. And if I felt that I wasn't accepted to my parents at that age, I felt like I wasn't acceptable to the world. And at about the same time, I was taken to a doctor and I was tested for ADHD. I was born in 1982. This was a common thing in the early 90s. And this was another situation where I had an individual in a white coat whose opinion about me was going to be valued by my parents. And essentially what this doctor was saying, not their actual words, was there's something else about you that doesn't work, something else about you that's broken and that the rest of the world doesn't accept, including your parents. Well, we have a solution for you, and it's a pill, and it's called Ritalin, and you're gonna take it every single day. And essentially what it's going to do is it's going to fix this broken part about you. And from that point on, I sort of owned this idea that it was my job to identify the broken parts about me and find a way, something, some substance, some activity outside of myself to fix or conceal that broken part of me so that I could be acceptable to other people. We moved to Austin, Texas from Houston, Texas. By the time I started high school, I didn't have any friends. I know freshmen are awkward, and I really set a bar here. I was an awkward kid who didn't know anyone. And it was a tough year. I got bullied a lot. But my prescription from Ritalin was changed to Adderall. And for those of you who don't know, Adderall, it's another stimulant-based form of medication that's used to treat ADHD. It's also a very popular party drug. And as soon as other kids had found out that I had a prescription to Adderall, I became a popular person. People started to want me around. People started to want me at their parties. And it felt amazing. It felt unbelievable to be wanted and valued and accepted and included. And so I gladly complied with this. I wanted to have something that I could offer to other people that they could get nowhere else, which meant that I was always going to be wanted around. And I'm going to tell you that the second that I used Adderall as a recreational drug, boom, I was just hooked, not to the drug, but to what it offered me. It seemed to offer the most unbelievable solution to these problems in my life that I had been trying desperately for years to solve and couldn't figure out. I was slightly overweight as a freshman. Adderall is amphetamine. That's what the stuff is. And so if I take enough amphetamines, my metabolism goes to the roof and I don't have a hunger drive. Boom, I've solved that problem. I was a shy freshman. Adderall gave me unbelievable confidence. I could go up to anyone and talk to them about anything, and it was immediately interesting to me. I was the life of the party. I had boundless energy. I could go at 120% for 24 hours. I was going to out-party you any day of the week, and people loved having that energy around them. My relationship with my dad was struggling at that time. I had very poor study habits, if you could consider them study habits at all. But when I took extra Adderall, I was able to behave as if I was the student my dad wanted me to be. Everything seemed to be working. I lost the weight. I made friends. I had girlfriends. My relationship with my dad got better. It seemed to magically fix all of these problems that I thought that I had about myself. Why in the world would I ever want to stop doing this? And it seemed like the more that I took, the more the person everyone wanted me to be, I was able to become. I got a scholarship to the college that I wanted to go to. My brother was coming to the same school with me. We both got a scholarship. It was like I was magically fixing everything for the first time. And the ease and repeatability that I could do this thing to seemingly fix my problems was unlike anything I'd ever found. And then in college, things took a turn because more became not enough. Not enough became an ever recurring problem. How much do I have left? How long will it last? Where will I get more? How much will it cost? Where am I going to get the money to pay for it? These became the biggest and most important concerns in my life. Not what was going on with school, what did I want to do with my life, how was I creating my independence? Those meaningful bonds and purpose and connection in life just seemed to drift away as the need for more drugs became ever more present. And eventually I dropped out of college, moved back to Austin, Texas. I told my family it's because I wanted to get a job in the industry that I was studying for a year or so. And it's nonsense. What I really wanted to do is I wanted to come home because that's where my dealers were. That's where the doctors lived that I knew that I could scam. And that's exactly what I started doing. I started doctor shopping. It's where you have multiple doctors prescribing the same medications without them knowing about each other. I started to buy and sell drugs on the street. I was stealing from my family. I was treating them like absolute garbage. I started to become incredibly depressed and isolated. I developed a secondary dependency to fast food. I was using so much drugs, so much of the time that I would run out for like two weeks at a time. And during that 2-week period, fast food was an amazing substitute for me to sort of numb myself up and escape life until I could get more drugs. And I was eating about 5,000 calories of fast food a day. I was drinking about 15 sodas. And when I say I was struggling with substance abuse, the average prescription for Adderall is about 10 milligrams for every 24 hours for an individual. At that time in my life, I was using a minimum of 450 milligrams up to 1,000 milligrams a day for 6 consecutive days without sleep. I would enter into a drug-induced psychosis, beginning stages of a drug-induced psychosis by the end of it. And I would pop opiates in order to finally get myself to go to sleep, wake up, start the fast food binge until I could get more drugs. And this was just a ongoing cycle. And living hurt. My weight reached about 350 pounds. And at that time, my dad came to me and he offered me the opportunity to attend one of the very first Engine 2 Plant Strong retreats that was held in Austin, Texas. I didn't want to go. I had no interest in going. I didn't know who Rip Esselstyn was. I didn't care who Rip Esselstyn was. I sure didn't want to know what he was talking about or had any interest in changing my lifestyle. But what I did know is that if I said yes, my dad would keep giving me money. So that is the only reason I went. I went high. I had drugs on me. My appearance was so disruptive to participants and to the staff that years later I found out that there were discussions about whether or not I should be removed from the program. I was very diaphoretic. I would sweat through 2-3 shirts a day. I smelled very toxic. At the time, I wasn't bathing or brushing my teeth. I was living like a hoarder. And I wish I could tell you all that all I did was I went to this thing. I learned about an amazing lifestyle called the low-fat plant-based diet. I wish I could tell you that speakers like Rip Esselstyn, like his dad, Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, people like Jeff Novick, Ann Esselstyn, Jane Esselstyn, that these people were able to reach me when I was there. The truth is that I just wasn't willing to give up what was allowing me to escape a life that was too painful a place to be. It was too painful, and I didn't understand that it was okay not to know how to deal with that pain. I didn't understand that it was okay to ask people for help. And so I lived in constant shame. I lived in constant fear and denial. And 2 years after the retreat, August 21st of 2012, I was 30 years old. My weight was nearly 350 pounds. I'd already developed erectile dysfunction. I had cuts on my legs from scratching mosquito bites that wouldn't heal for reasons I didn't understand at the time. And living hurt, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. I had been battling suicidal thoughts for 6 months. I had been practicing self-harm on a regular basis. I would go into my bathroom and I would stand in front of the mirror and I'd take off my shirt. And I'd look at this person that I didn't even recognize. And I would just start hitting myself as hard as I could over and over and over again. I'd punch my stomach, I'd punch my arms, I'd punch my face. And every time I hit myself, I'd look at myself in the mirror and I'd say, "You're worthless and I hate you." My goal was, I believed that if I could just hate myself enough, and if I could just hate my life enough, that would motivate me to do something. And all that would happen was I'd end up on the floor, swollen red, bleeding and crying, feeling more disconnected from the ability to ever reconnect to what was truly meaningful to me in life and gave me the experience of being alive. And on August 21st of 2012, I just couldn't do it anymore. When every single day is you're living with pain that you cannot understand or figure out, and you live with a certainty that tomorrow will be worse. Eventually, tomorrow is not something you want to be a part of. And I grabbed a handful of pills and I attempted suicide by overdose. Now, I wasn't new to drug use. I certainly wasn't new to the sensation of an overdose. I'd been on the verge of overdose a few times, and this one felt distinctly different. I can remember trying to stand up off my couch, and it felt like I got stabbed in the right side with a hot knife. And as I buckled over, my entire right side of my body cramped. And I could see black fading in from the sides, and I had this profound understanding that I was about to spend the last moment of my life in a hoarder's-like apartment, completely alone, separate from everyone and everything that has ever meant anything to me. Not because they didn't want to be there, but because I had made it impossible for them to do so, and it was the most terrifying experience of my life. That feeling, and I don't mean the physical feeling I just described to you, but that feeling of disconnection and loss was the most painful thing I've ever felt in my life. I woke up a few hours later in a puddle of vomit in a pile of fast food garbage, surrounded by empty pill bottles, and I was overcome with relief. I was overcome with relief, and that feeling paused and asked me to consider what had just taken place. See, I thought I just tried to end my life. But the relief that I experienced could only be there because there had to have been something about myself and my life that I loved enough. Something about myself and the people that I shared my life with and my purpose beyond myself that I still loved enough, that I still wanted to be a part of it all, even though I knew it would be painful. And I'm going to tell you guys, I was that person. I was that person that when you came out to me and you said, "Hey, Adam, don't you see what you're doing to yourself? Why do you want to do this?" My parents would say that. My mom would say that. My dad would say that. My brother, my sister. And I would look at them in the eye and I'd say, you know what? I don't care. This is how I want to live my life. And if it costs me 5 years, I'm fine with it. God, really? 5 years? I mean, I just threw that number out there like it was nothing. And I think about if I had been successful that night, my goodness, what would my family not do for 5 years with me? What would they do for 5 minutes with me? I told myself that I wasn't going to let that happen. And I know this to be true. There's nothing more valuable than time. You know, if we get 1,000 years with the people we love the most, the second it's over, it will be too soon. I called my parents and I asked for help. I checked into treatment. And within 72 hours, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, erectile dysfunction, bipolar disorder, suicidal depression, anxiety disorder, sleep disorder, and attention deficit disorder, and obsessive compulsive personality disorder. I was put on a cabinet's worth of medication. Thankfully so. I was a walking cliche. I walked into rehab high with a full intention of doing 28 days away from my drug and coming back and using, but I'll have a handle on it this time. And I'm so grateful that I was so sick, because it forced me to understand that if I wasn't willing to change everything about the way that I moved through the world, drug use or not, I wasn't guaranteed 5 years. And I can remember leaving the doctor's office and being terrified. And I went into my dorm room, I picked up the phone, I called my dad, and I said, "Hey, Dad, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm done. I quit." And he said, "What do you, wait, hold, hang on a second. What do you mean you quit? It hasn't even been a week." He said, "I thought all I had to do was get off drugs. Now they're telling me I have diabetes and heart disease and all these other psychological conditions, and I don't understand this. I don't want to deal with this. I'm out of here. I'm done." And he could hear the fear in my voice. He reminded me of the things that I learned at the Plant Strong retreat. And he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, "Adam, if there's something about your life that you don't like, that's painful, and you can do something about it, then it's not a problem. And Adam, if there's something about your life that's painful and you can't do anything about it, it's not a problem, It's just the way things are. And perhaps together we can find a way for you to look at it differently so that you can be successful in your life. And in that moment, a person that I had unfortunately hated for years stopped being my adversary. He became my ally. And I told myself I was going to make plant-based nutrition the backbone of my recovery. And unfortunately, in rehab, they weren't about to let me change my diet. But I moved into a sober living facility after 37 days in a rehab hospital. And in that sober living facility, I had the opportunity to adopt a plant-based diet. And I can remember I walked up to the house manager, whose last name was literally Hamburger. And I told him that I wanted to adopt a plant-based diet. And he said, well, what do you need to be successful? I'll get it for you. So he gets me everything that I need. And I can remember walking into the cabinet in the morning, opening it up and looking at it and going, all right, there's the oatmeal I asked for. And it was sitting right next to the Fruity Pebbles, which was my favorite cereal of all time. And there was mornings when I would be crying because I was trying so hard to resist and restrict my decision for the Fruity Pebbles. And I couldn't understand why this couldn't simply be a matter of intellect and will. Why could I not know what to do, want to do it, and that's it, end of story. And thankfully, I remembered there was a presentation by a man named Doug Lyle, and it's called The Pleasure Trap. And I went and I watched this TED Talk, and I read this book. And what it explains in the TED Talk is that it's a very reasonable biological response to be compelled towards any decision that creates a higher than normal dopamine response. Because dopamine is like a guidance system that directs us towards decisions that our bodies believe are in our best interest for long-term survival. And that essentially, if I could just be comfortable being uncomfortable and make the healing choice in an environment an amazing thing for us. They highlight loving and meaningful bonds in our lives that are being threatened. Those loving and meaningful bonds in your life that mean the world to you, that you would do anything for. They tell you which ones of those could be taken away if you don't make change. It is those loving and meaningful bonds. That is why we do what we do. That's why we do what we do right now. It's why we learn to do things better, or we learn to do things differently. It's so that we can be more present with the things in our lives that mean the world to us. That was my motivation. I told myself I wasn't going to focus on what was the matter with me. I wanted to focus on what was the matter, what mattered to me. And let that be my guidance system. Let that be the reason why I make one decision over another. And I can remember sitting in my sober living room with my counselor, and we're talking about the day that I survived my suicide. And it was like this ultimate expression of my body showing up for me. And I had spent my whole life believing that my body was my adversary, that I had to restrict energy and push out calories in an attempt to win a battle on a scale, and that my body was my problem that I had to outcompete. But what if that surviving the suicide was the ultimate expression that my body has never given up on me? It has been fighting for me since the day I was born. What if my body has been my greatest ally and I never knew it? What if every decision I made, even the drugs and the fast food that I was eating on a constant basis, my body was saying, we're still going to do the best for you that we can with this until you learn to do better. We're never giving up on you. When I embodied that mindset, there was no more restriction. Everything was about being a caretaker for this body that wants me to thrive, being in alignment with priorities and values that connected me towards the ability to show up and be present for the meaningful bonds in my life. As a result of taking on that mindset, I was able to make food acts of self-care and self-love as a vehicle to reconnect me to a life that I've been missing out on for far too long. In 4 months, I completely reversed my diabetes, my heart disease, and my erectile dysfunction. Within 1 year, I was off of every single medication I was put on in rehab, including the antidepressants, the mood stabilizers, the sleeping medications, the anxiety medications, and the ADHD medications. I've lost 180 pounds as of today. And it's been the most unbelievable experience. I'm going to have 9 years sober in October of this year. And I can tell you for sure that I've never seen a more profound example of how unbroken human beings are than when you put them on a plant-based diet. Let it be an example for the predictability of the things that you're dealing with. If you look at my story, the reason why I was 350 pounds, had diabetes and heart disease, the reason why I nearly died from substance abuse is because that's exactly what's supposed to happen when you consume 5,000 calories of fast food on a regular basis, when you ignore yourself and your feelings and you don't give yourself the opportunity to be vulnerable and you hide behind drug use. This is exactly what's supposed to happen. There's never been anything wrong with me or who I am. This is the most reasonable response to an abnormal way of living. The anxiety, the depression, the anger, reasonable response to an abnormal way of living. The chronic diseases, the weight, reasonable response to an abnormal way of living. I changed my environment and I completely changed my life. There's a few people who are very much responsible for helping me get here. I know that when I tell my story, it seems like it's a one-man journey, but I'm going to tell you right now, one of my favorite quotes comes from a man you all probably know, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I like what he said in an interview. He said, "You can say anything about me. You can say good things and you can say bad things, but don't you ever call me a self-made man." I feel that so strongly because I am alive today because people in my life were there to pick me up every time I fell. And believe me, I fell a lot. One of those people was Rip Esselstyn. The things that Rip taught me gave me the ability to stop surviving my life, start living my life. And when he met me, I was in survival mode and it was a painful way of living. And I know that because of the tools that he gave me, the plant-based nutrition, I've been able to really start to take charge of my life in a way that I've never been able to before. And then of course, my mom and my dad. My mom and my dad are the foundation of my recovery for sure. I have two photos in my house. One is a photo that my mom took as she watched as she and my dad walked me in the doors of rehab. And the photo next to it is a photo that my mom took as she watched my dad and I run the race in Austin 3 years later because they've walked this entire journey with me. It's been the most incredible journey of my life. And what I know for sure is that I'm grateful for all of it. I'm grateful for the diseases, for the suicide, for the obesity, for everything. It's taught me what an amazing gift life really is. I can tell you that self-love isn't part of my journey. It's the whole freaking thing. And I could do a whole deal where I put up a before and after photo of me next to, where it's me at 350 and me now at 180. And I can say, like the simplest change on your fork can make the most profound change of your life. And that's wonderful. But that's a before and after photo. These are windows in time. They don't say really anything. The profound change that I'm talking about is the fact that when I get up in the morning, I know that I have a meaningful and loving bond with myself physically and emotionally that I want to show up and be present for every single day. I have people in my life, friends and family, that I want to get up and share value with, and that I want them to share value with me, and I want to be present for that every single day. I have a meaningful and loving bond with a purpose beyond myself, within a community of unbelievably shared respect that I want to show up and be present for every single day. And I have a future that makes sense and feels safe and I'm excited about, that I want to get up and be present for every single day. I have a family that loves me and that I get to be a part of. I have the best friends in the world and I'm going to marry the love of my life. This is the profound change that I'm talking about. And every single person has the capacity in some way to make that kind of change. I can tell you this much. My brother, after I helped him reverse his diabetes, he came to me and he said, "Adam, there's a quote by Joseph Campbell that people are not looking so much for the meaning of life as much as they are the experience of being alive." And man, do I fully understand that. Alive is a feeling. It's an unbelievable feeling that I missed out on for a long time. And there's never a point where it's too far gone. Everybody has the opportunity to reconnect to that feeling of being alive. I want to end my presentation, and I want to thank you all for allowing me to share my story with you all. I want to end my presentation. I've unfortunately lost a lot of friends to suicide and overdose. And a friend of mine who actually, he didn't pass from any of those. His name was David Clark. He was a very, very dear friend of mine. He passed away from complications of surgery. He had one of the most wonderful sayings I've ever heard, and I want to leave you all with it. We all know the saying that if you want to be happy, you should live like it's the last day of your life. Well, David Clark used to tell people that if you really want to be happy, try treating everyone else as if they were living the last day of theirs. Thank you all for letting me share my story. I really appreciate it. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of Plant Stock.
A similar talk to that one, probably 10 times, and every time I am literally moved to tears. I cannot believe how much Adam has grown as a human being and as a contributing member to society. It is phenomenal. And the way that he has made food an act of self-care and self-love is spectacular. And I love when he says in his talk that he has become the best caretaker for his body ever. So many enlightening, brilliant things that Adam Sudd has discovered on his journey. And you can see why he was the perfect person to end our first day of Plant Stock. Now, next up, I want to share with you a little tribute. This is from a couple that you all know at least one of the members. You may not know Tracy, but I know you all know John. He's getting back on the horse when it comes to getting back on TV. We absolutely love and adore these two. They are huge Plant Strong advocates, and we're going to close out the night with their tribute. Remember, tomorrow we're back live at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. See you tomorrow. Keep it Plant Strong.
Hey everybody, happy 10 years. You've changed so many lives. I can't believe it's only been 10 years because this is my 18-year-old high school sweetheart. I'm obviously 17. It's a little bit of a May-December thing, but thank you so much for everything. You guys are awesome.
We love you guys. Congratulations.
Happy anniversary.